Okay, hello everyone, welcome tonight. We've got a number of guests here, and we were going to wait to see how many guests we had before we could invite everyone to the table, but we've got a full committee here tonight too, so we'll keep you guys where you are, and at certain points during the discussion, if there's a lot of questions to be raised, we can bring everyone up to the podium to speak to different items. I just wanted to, I'll start off by acknowledging that we're holding the meeting tonight on Squamish Nation traditional territory. And we'll move right to business for adopting the agenda. Would anyone like to adopt? Eric? Brian? Good. And we'll quickly go through the committee minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes from last time? So I'll put forward a motion to approve the minutes.
I've just got a couple things to mention about the minutes.
Sure, absolutely.
Just to segue into the meeting tonight. In the minutes, it was unclear to me about there's talking minutes about the $5,000 for the East Side Trail.
Oh,
yes.
yes.
It was unclear to me as what was resolved with that.
Okay.
I'm just mentioning that. And it was also unclear in the minutes as to if, when, how the East Side Trail was to begin construction.
Okay.
So I just didn't see that portrayed in the minutes.
So my thoughts on that were that I think because the reason we didn't have any formal instructions from that meeting was because it was decided upon earlier in previous minutes. So do we want to, how would we amend the minutes to include that?
So you can't amend the minutes to include conversation that didn't happen.
Okay.
You can only correct what is in the minutes. So we don't take verbatim minutes. So if you feel like they're incorrectly reflecting what happened in the meeting, if there's a line that's incorrect specifically, then you can correct that. Or if you think that they're incorrectly reflecting the discussion that happened, you can add direction into the minutes that wasn't given. So if you feel like there was direction given in that meeting in regards to the East Side Trail, then that's something we could correct. But if that wasn't directed or a motion passed,
right,
then that wouldn't be recorded.
I suppose that's what I'm getting at. I didn't see in the minutes that there was direction given, yet the trail was built, so I'm confused.
Yeah, that would have been from a previous meeting.
Okay.
Spencer.
That's my point.
Okay.
I read the minutes because I was not able to make the last meeting.
Okay.
I read the minutes that were read at that one, but in the previous meeting that I was at, I didn't see it clearly recorded in those minutes that we had approved one phase, and that phase 2 we didn't approve because it was different than what we had actually walked and established as the
Was there a motion for phase 1? I haven't read back in the last 2-3 meetings, but
yeah, we actually talked that we would approve phase 1 and construction of phase 1 and get the money spent.
And that wasn't specifically noted in the minutes?
That's right.
Okay.
The fact that we actually, many of us had reservations about phase 2, and we talked at length about that line, which is on the drawing, and phase 2 going up to the left.
Yeah, and that was understood.
And that was understood, but I didn't see it clearly recorded in the minutes that conversation had taken place.
Well, moving forward, one of the things we're going to discuss today is how the issues we're talking about tonight won't happen in the future. So one of those things we'll be looking at a way we can minute things in a little bit different of a way, like including action items, and then also to keep the committee accountable, so to make sure we're achieving things, because we only have 4 meetings a year. So we can discuss that later on and look at how we can make the minutes even more successful as well.
Are we also going to discuss the impacts of past things that have happened, such as the trail construction that we didn't approve, and how that may
We absolutely will, yeah.
remediated?
But let's get to that under the East Side item.
Yes.
And we'll move forward with the minutes here. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? So I'll put forward a motion to approve the minutes as in front of us. Can someone second? Eric? Okay, so moving on to business arising, and delegations and petitions. So the first item on the business item is the East Side Loop Trail discussion. And I just wanted to quickly mention before, we've got a large group here today. We also have a large number of new committee members. And I think last meeting, we kind of had trouble following Robert's Rules of Order. So I wanted to just remind everyone that this is a proper committee meeting and it's being filmed by the district, and that we all need to speak in turn, and that if you'd like to speak or raise a concern, to direct your, like, put up a hand and I can acknowledge you at the proper time. And if we have comments from our guests tonight, we'll also call out to you to speak, and then we can either bring people up if there's a whole bunch of comments on one item, or call out individually. So moving on to the East Side Loop Trail discussion, I'm going to pass the meeting over to Gary to chair at this point, and you can take it away. Do you want to come up here?
No, I think I can speak fairly clearly from here. So, we're all aware of what's happened with the East Side Trail. So we've done a bit of a debrief and a review internally, and there's a certain number of things that have certainly come to light. The first of which is that there was, as has already been pointed out, there's certainly a sequence of unclear communication between the committee and staff, and then staff and the contractor. There's no clear motional resolution to commence the trail in the minutes. It's sort of inferred from a discussion in the latter part of the video of that. That sort of follows a number of oral discussions about the trail at the past meeting and prior meetings. We hadn't got work done over the winter because of weather and contractor availability. It would be that motion, or the lack thereof, would be especially unclear to new committee members that weren't part of those past discussions. We could and should have been a little bit clearer, I think, as committee and staff about where we were starting with that discussion and where we ended up. So there was no clear direction other than that you can infer from knowledge coming out of that meeting. And there was some unclear communication between staff and contractor with respect to the work. The contractors are very familiar with the territory, they're very familiar with the park, they're very familiar with the trail plan. And we all made some assumptions that we were all on the same page about the work that was to be performed. As you know, sometimes we all share those assumptions and sometimes we don't. In this case, we did. The contractor has done more work than we had anticipated, but there was no clear direction that start here, stop there. It was, we can proceed with the trail work that we've previously discussed, assuming that people had a common understanding of what that meant. But no, they've done more work than we thought. They're into phase 2 quite clearly. The other issue that is clear is that our consultation could have been better. A lot of the consultation around the trail was done, let's say, quite some time ago as part of the master plan. There was connection with users and user groups. But again, no one really thought we were starting phase 2, and I say we could have done a better job of consultation. What we've learned is that we need to be clear leaving this committee about the actions that are being directed. Perhaps we need an action item list resulting from, or alternate to that is sufficient clarity in the motions that the committee makes. We need to be very clear with our contractor about work that we are authorising. The consultation that we do needs to be much closer in time to the work being performed. Sometimes if a few months lapse between consultation and work, that's not the best way. And our consultation, probably with respect to work like this, needs to involve signage in the park so that users that maybe aren't directly connected to user groups are aware of the work before it goes on. So this hasn't gone the way that I think anyone intended. There was no ill intent on anyone's part. It's sort of one of those things, sort of a cascading series of events. But hopefully if we're a little clear about, when we leave here, we're a little clear about what we do, we can then provide better clarity to the contractors. And I think our consultation, we can always learn and be a little bit better on in that regard. So that sort of gives us the but how we got to where we're at.
Gary and I put together a few notes of sort of the background of the Smoke Bluffs and the Smoke Bluff Committee, just for people new to the committee and our guests tonight, and sort of the background as to why we decided to go ahead with this trail. I've been part of the committee for probably a very short time compared to a number of volunteers here who have been part of it for many years. If you have something to add to that I haven't discussed in the way I should, please feel free to let me know. The park was established initially from efforts from the climbing community, and so there's been a lot of discussion about whether this trail was specifically to connect climbing crags, and it wasn't necessarily. I think the committee, from my perspective, the committee's goal with this trail, since I've been on the committee, was to sort of improve our trail network system through the park, to include the FM tower, to also bring in underutilized crags, and then to formalize a trail that's already been used by a lot of users, for example, trail runners or people going to those crags, because some of us had noted that grading had gone quite, there was a number of trails and they weren't easy to follow, and sometimes that can lead, especially in other areas in the climbing community, that leads to degradation. So I think from my perspective, that was the premises for the reason we went ahead with this trail. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay. And so one thing I wanted to just talk about really briefly is that the park is traditionally known for climbing, and a large part of that is because it was established by the climbing community, and the park is still owned, a good chunk of it's owned by the Federation of Mountain Clubs BC. But that doesn't mean it's a climbing-only park. It has many users, and the trail was not intended to focus on only climbers, and it wasn't intended to rule any users out. It was intended to be a multi-use trail that would benefit every user of the park. So I just wanted to make that known. So there's no issues about whether it was climbing dedicated or. It was supposed to be a trail that everybody could use and enjoy in the park and add to the park from a committee perspective of volunteers who all love the park. So.
And I think that, to say that the park was established by the climbing community is somewhat accurate. We probably had, the greatest push towards it.
Yes.
But there were other user groups as well
That's
supporting the climbing community and the establishment of a park,
Mm-hmm.
which is not being recognized in what you're saying.
Yes, that is absolutely true, and there is historical use of trials biking, mountain biking in the areas that we discussed over the last few years even, so that is important to note, and so
we've been with the climbing community at the table in every committee.
Absolutely, yeah, and you've been a long-standing member of this community as well.
Well, and before,
committee.
it was Glenn Wolosky, and then it was Tim.
Yeah.
But I mean, it goes back to, the Perry Beckham days and so on and so forth, and
Yeah, absolutely.
the whole idea forming.
And so I'm not bringing that up to say this is a climbers park. I'm bringing it up to say this has been established, and its major use is known as climbing, but that wasn't the purpose of this trail. This trail was supposed to be a benefit to the park from a number of aspects. So also in terms of the trail, there was significant committee discussion about it. We talked about it for many years leading up to the management plan. And we've been discussing it almost every meeting since the management plan's been finalized. It's part of our priorities table. Every time we identify and go through those capital management and maintenance priorities, we look at that and decide if that's still a high priority list. And over the course of all of those meetings, we've had many different members of our committee all agree that this was in the high stages of priority. It was assumed that representatives had clearly communicated to their respective groups, and in this case maybe it wasn't sufficient, and maybe it didn't reach people who aren't part of those respective groups. And it wasn't as effective as we were actually, I think a number of users on the committee or committee members were surprised by the feedback that we'd received afterwards. So to date, the machine work on the trail is complete. If there was any future trail, it would have to be handwork. And Gary, maybe I'll let you take over the how do we move forward part of the discussion.
I'm not recommending that we look backwards or dissect the decision. I mean, it is what it is. It was made and the work's done. It can't be readily undone. So I suggest that the discussion, I mean, how we might move forward. I mean, there are options. We continue with the predetermined route to the summit. We reroute phase 2, remove phase 2 altogether, not do phase 2. And there are options for alternate routes that we've identified. Those involve going through Crown land. It's a bit more tricky to work, but there are options. I don't think we'd recommend reclamation because of the reasons that the trail is done. So I think the discussion around, where to from here is probably the best place to start. Looking backwards isn't really going to help us, but it's like how do we want to proceed from this point forward?
So Gary, do you think we should split this up at this point into start talking about usage for the options for the first section of the trail, reclamation or leave as is, and then move into the options for phase 2? Or do we want to just leave phase 1 as is for now?
Well, I guess, does the committee want to start a discussion around reclamation?
I would like to start the discussion.
Okay.
Phase 2 or the whole thing?
The whole thing.
Sorry.
Okay, so let's break it up into the 2 phases just to keep us on track. So let's start thoughts on reclamation of phase 1.
Okay, can I begin?
Yep.
Okay. I'll begin by saying I joined this committee. I've lived in Squamish. Some of you have known me, some of you I'm a new face. I've lived in Squamish for 19 years. I'm not new to town. I live on Penny Lane, so I'm in the park every single day. When I moved to Squamish 19 years ago, I said to myself, I'm going to live there one day. And I do. It's my favorite place in the world. This park is important to me. I'm proud to be part of this committee. I don't take this lightly. When I joined this committee, gosh, it was our last meeting roughly 2 months ago. At that exact moment, I felt like the park was perfect. People had been doing an incredible job of managing it. You all had come together and really knocked it out of the park, so to speak. That one corner of the park, as a resident, as someone who loves the park, who's lived in Squamish for 19 years, was a precious, undeveloped, untouched little gem. Yes, there were trails in there. Yes, they were, quote, underutilized. But we all know what's happened to our town over the last 5 years. It's growing. It's full of people. It's not the town that we all moved to initially. That corner of the park is old Squamish. That's why I love it in there. It's not full of Vancouver people with boom boxes listening to Spotify, taking Instagram pictures on the summit of the park. It was a secret, beautiful gem. That trail invites that whole new world of Squamish development into that beautiful corner of the park, and that's why I'm so opposed to it. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to that? Lisa.
I have a question because I'm new here and I don't have a lot of context. And I can't read years of minutes. So I love what you just described there. That sounded great. Would this have been brought, were you on the committee when the decision was made to go ahead, or would this have been brought up at that time before the committee was like, yes, let's agree to this? Or where does that fall in the timeline? Because that's what I don't know being significant.
Absolutely. So this is my second meeting. I've taken the time to watch previous meetings. I've watched videos.
Yeah.
I've reviewed all the old minutes. And that's why I initially spoke about the minutes. It's not just the last meeting, it's the last few meetings. When I look at history, I don't see that this was ever formally approved. So I was baffled that it did happen.
So so we should try and reach some sort of general agreement in terms of reclamation or not reclamation. So I would like the other committee members to share their thoughts on that.
Can I just ask a question? Was phase one formally
Phase
approved?
one.
Was phase one, because of this response, was phase one formally approved or not?
Well, based on what Gary had said, we didn't have I'm not sure if we had a formal motion, but we did have a motion to have that go through to council for approval. So I'm not sure if the committee was misunderstood in the fact that it hadn't been formally approved, but from my perspective, it had been. And I'm not sure if any of does anyone in the committee feel that it wasn't clear?
It was my understanding that phase one was something that we all, by consensus, agreed to.
Yes, and that's kind
And
of,
that was, to me, that was quite clear. The nature of how it's been built, that may be not quite as clear, but the fact that we would actually have that phase one built on the proposed line, the proposed flagging, that was, to my knowledge and to my memory, clear.
and I do believe that that as a committee, we can have a general agreement or we can have consensus on things without passing a motion, and things can still be moved ahead. So whether or not we had a formal motion pushing this ahead, we still had consensus as a committee over many years that this was a priority, and many years and multiple meetings to move it forward. We discussed budget before Christmas, and so from my perspective, it was formally approved by the meeting within the procedures that we have. Anyone else? Louisa?
So then with that, if I understand what's just kind of been relayed by everybody, the only discussion is phase two then, right?
Yes. But Mike brought to the table that he'd like to discuss the reclamation. So my personal agreement is that that part of the trail wouldn't be reclaimed. We've spent our budget for the committee. And this is for phase one only. But I'm interested to hear what everyone else is. We need to find some agreement on this. So.
I see no point in reclaiming phase one.
Okay.
I have not, for physical reasons, I've had hip surgery and a broken Achilles. I've not been able to walk it. So I can't personally weigh in on, does it relate to what we had originally conceived when we didn't walk, when we went and walked it as a committee? I can't weigh in, unfortunately.
I have walked it, and phase one does relate exactly, in as much as the contractor has the option to have some variation depending on his machine activity. It does reflect what we discussed, decided on by consensus in this committee.
Yeah, I agree as well. When I walked phase one, it was exactly how we walked it as a group that day. A minor deviation, but it was what I expected, and you did a great job.
Any feedback from the district? Certainly. You guys have had members out on the committee too? Or?
Yeah, I was at the walkabout and I've walked it and it definitely follows where I thought phase one would go.
Eric?
Can we just define where phase one was officially decided to be ended? Is that at Grand Dug? Is it beyond? Like when
It
we
is
say
Grand
phase-
Dug. Do we have the map of phase one?
It is, that was what I just wanted to that. So when we talk about it, we know it's Grand Dug is there.
Yeah.
Phase two is it, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
That was our landmark.
Just make sure I know what we need to do.
Just passing a map around.
Great. Can you guys see that back there?
No.
Yeah, you could pass some copies back.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry. Somebody's printed them.
I'll call out to you guys to comment at the end of this once we've had the roundtable sort of on this topic.
We passed them a couple.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty. Do you guys all have some? Helen, have you had a chance to?
Walk it? I just walked it
Okay.
a few hours ago. I really liked it.
Okay, so your thoughts on reclamation?
Why?
Okay. And Eric, Councillor Erickson?
Yes, so prior to coming on to council, I have been following the Smoke Bluffs Park Management Plan development since its beginning. And that was a process that lasted at least 1.5 years, if not longer. And I followed that very closely, and as a person in the neighborhood, I have different areas of focus, fire issues and so on. But this was always in the periphery of what I observed, and my conclusion is that that we have followed the spirit of the bylaw, followed the spirit of the enabling for the development plan, and followed the spirit of the management plan. And there is very careful language in the consultation summary document that's been circulated, so that I'm satisfied that we should not be taking any steps towards reclamation and that drastic regarding phase 1, that the emphasis should be on looking at future options and looking at communications process and protocol.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to open it up to the guests we have today to speak one at a time. And just take note not to re-emphasize each other's points. So just like, yeah, if you have something unique to say.
Are we speaking just to the phase 1 reclamation
Yes.
at this point? We're not talking about
Just phase
yet?
1.
So, I walked phase 1.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, come up to the mic.
Yeah. Hi. Right, yeah, right. I should know better. Brian Reiser, hi. Yeah, I got a couple notes, but I just wanted to clarify. So phase 1, the bottom part, so this line doesn't see, this line accurately portrays where it is?
It would be the bottom box of the dashed black.
Okay, yeah, so this yellow line is accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So the committee purposely made a walking trail to go up there's a few spaces where there's like 6-foot launches, and the runout is now a hiking trail coming up. So I'm like, I know the MIA would freak out if they saw this, but what Municipal Insurance Association? But what, was that, the board all agreed that it was to go up that trail?
So we had this route, not all of us are bikers.
No, I know, that's why it's good to consult.
But yeah, so I think we had this route as part of the consultation with the user groups.
Okay.
And from the consultation, there wasn't issues with the multi-use section of that trail.
Okay, I'll start. So I might as well just go through it because, all right. As much as I love and respect each and every person in this room, I don't want to be here tonight. I have so many other things to do. I don't even like being in this room anymore. I'm here, sadly, because, as this park committee pointed out very clearly in the consultation paperwork, that as one of the most active hikers, bikers, and trail maintenance advocates of this park, I should be consulted. In my capacity as organizer, it's Beyond the Valley Cliff of the Dolls, an event that predates the creation of this park. Sadly, has been pointed out, there's a horrific lack of consultation. That's the only reason I'm here. As a fiercely local advocate of this park's creation, my love for this park and each and every user and user group is beyond question. I also think that expanding multi-use trails in Valley Cliff is a phenomenal idea with proper consultation. It is. It's great. Huge supporter of this. There could have easily have been a route found that worked for everybody, but it was specifically chosen not to do that. Which brings us to this winter. Being particularly cold and icy, I was unable to bike or board, so I spent all my winter going out into that zone doing maintenance, making sure everything's spick and span. I was spending 3 or 4 days a week in that area. I was told there was a proposed trail that was going to be there, and I thought, great, fantastic, underutilized, let's talk about it. I was also told I was going to be consulted. I was not. So, hence, when walking out there, this happened. Now, previously we discussed the history. I too was one of the huge vocal champions of let's create this park. Come on, Bob, let's do it. Let's do it. I was super vocal and active in the creation of this park because, again, it has always been a jewel. Valley Cliff is often derived. I think it's the best thing we got going, but let's not spread that around. So after I saw the what happened and climbing trail going up down insane downhill mountain bike trails with no signage and a Facebook post telling people to use it without signage. But I took a look at the November footage. Does everybody in this room realize that everything we're saying in this room is recorded
Absolutely.
and videoed? Well, they're going to be after today. First of all, I'd like to say, Elaine Nesby, thank you so much at that meeting. You were a rock star. You started the meeting. You laid out specifically, point by point, the issues that could come up with this. You were absolutely amazing. You not only brought up potential issues, you brought up solutions. There's this zone here. You were amazing, well-spoken, calm, so amazing. Then Matt Parker, national treasure in my books, amazing man. He also, a lot of really good points about, hey, this is a sensitive area. There's a lot of users. Let's make sure everything works with it. And Spencer Fitchin also made several good points about concerns and opportunities for this trail. Then there were other people on the board who were filmed being pretty intent on doing whatever they could that mountain biking might be negatively impacted. That's the part that broke my heart.
So Brian, to interrupt you.
No.
Just really quickly.
If I was consulted, I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't have to take up your time or mine. So I'm just going to finish this, and then we can discuss.
No, sure, yeah. I just wanted to make sure that we want to acknowledge the errors that we did make, but
I'm getting up to
agenda
going
today,
forward.
so.
Yeah, I know. I just want to make sure it clear. Everybody knows who I am, where I'm coming from, why I'm trying not to cry, and why I'm pissed off at being here in the first place.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that you're here because you're.
Thank you.
You're passionate.
Fuck yeah. Let the record show. See, I can do that now that I'm not a council. Okay, so sadly, no one who actually bikes in this area was consulted. I was actually on the list of people that should be consulted, and in bright, bold letters, was not consulted. I don't believe this was an accident. Show of hands, who remembers me spending 3 or 4 years in this coming to meetings here? Who remembers me being here? Show of hands, don't be shy. Okay. Now, you people must also remember the one thing I repeated at every single meeting. Every single meeting, I said, mountain biking is one of the uses in this park. Biggest argument I had. Every year. No, it's not. No, it's not. Every time I was told, no, it's not. Because years ago, Sorka did not have the resources to spare a member for the board when the park was first created. So I was told repeatedly that Sorka was overtaxed, they couldn't send anybody here, so there is no mountain biking and we do not have to ever be concerned about people on bikes in this park. Ridiculous reasoning, to be sure, but I continually let it slide because the board, smart, and they're doing phenomenal job. I repeat, love the park, love the board, you guys do great work. And you were smart enough to leave the tiniest corner of that park to the mountain bikes and the trials, and everything was working great. Then I watched the November meetings, and some comments showed such hubris that not only emotionally expressed a desire to conflict with mountain biking, but you guys openly discussed, this is important, how the board repeatedly and purposely circumvents the District of Squamish purchasing policy to award tens of thousands of dollars in contracts. It's on film. I don't even have to name names. You guys said it. You purposely go around the district purchasing policy to award tens of thousands of dollars.
I'm not going to let that stand. That's not correct.
Watch the footage, my friend. It's anything over 5,000.
It may have been said, it's not correct.
Brian,
No, okay, we're almost there.
our bylaw states that 5 minutes per speaker. So I'm gonna have to cut you off there, but you're welcome to come up.
Really? You're not gonna let me consult? And
Nope.
now you're cutting me off?
It's
I'll
right
let him finish.
Thank you. Jeez,
Anyone else
man.
to,
Oh.
okay, we can
Thank
finish,
you.
but we do have to get through the
Yo,
agenda
I
items
know,
on
and
this
again,
meeting.
if I was consulted, this wouldn't be happening, right? It wouldn't be happening. Oh, so further my point, it was pointed out that the contract would be over $5,000. If you have $5,000, it has to go to bidder. It says, hey, let's split it up into multiple contracts. Again, I'm not making this up. It's on the footage. Like, and if I'm wrong, that's fine, but that's what I saw on my TV. So, this contempt shows that beyond a shadow of doubt that the committee as it stands, I don't believe, no longer represents the interests of the District of Squamish. It's become a personal park for select users, and Squamish, as it was said, is too big to put up with this childish nonsense any longer. Back in the day, sure, whatever, we can do whatever. Here we are, what could have been a prized jewel, and again, I'm in favor of a multi-use park. And again, in the video, people commented specifically, we are not to even remotely consider mountain biking uses.
But it was considered.
This trail is a liability, the Municipal Insurance Association, if they saw some of the most challenging features in our community on mountain biking, that says a lot, encouraging people to hike up it is a liability of staggering proportions. I'm not saying do we reclaim it or whatever. I don't know what the option is, but we have to address, there has to be massive signage, we have to address that downhill specific trails have been created into uphill hiking trails, and there has to be either new trails built, this trail either has to be reverted to its original state to end, or there has to be something, because as it stands now, it is a significant liability for the District of Squamish and each and every member of this board.
Gary, can you speak to how we would move forward without reclaiming, but addressing user conflicts potentially?
I'd like you to thank you too. I was right at the last sentence. One more sentence.
Oh.
Again, bikers are not here to take away your park. Seriously, there's so many places to park. I told you all of the master plan. Every time a master plan, there is mountain biking done in that park. If this park appreciates and accepts all other user groups, ignore it, and it's horrible. And if you bring in everybody in, wonderful things can happen. Absolutely wonderful. None of these people needed to be here today. There could have been something easily done for everybody. I'm here out of love. This trail was built out of spite. And Squamish deserves better than this committee, as it stands, apparently is able to provide. All right, thank you for listening.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you very much. Get all fired up. Yeah, I look forward to immediate action so that this park will represent the District of Squamish.
So I'd like to just note, so
earlier,
great. Earlier, when I was discussing that our intention as the committee was to make this a multi-user trail, I do think that we should look at if there is any unsafe things on the trail for users. What's our process in doing that?
We've walked the trail there. There was signage
We are installing signage.
at those intersections to
Okay.
advise of.
And do we have a timeline on that signage?
I think we're,
Should be done any day, actually.
Okay.
we're just waiting on signs to be completed.
Spencer?
The locations that Brian's referring to, again, I can say that I haven't seen them. Has anybody thought to talk with somebody in the mountain biking community to establish where those areas of elevated risk may exist before we start to put signs in places that we may not be putting in the right place?
The signs were going at the intersections of the trail.
But that may not be where the elevated risk profile of that trail exists. Has anybody thought to talk to the mountain bike community to find out where these issues exist now with this new trail over existing users and the new user groups?
Roland, did you want to speak up to the mic?
Thank you for that. Hi everyone, I'm Roland Denisaki. I sit on the board
Sorka in a trail planning and advocacy role. And at this point, let's come up where signage is going is on my list, so I think it's prudent to bring it up. I don't use the Smoke Bluffs Park all that much. I hiked it once several years ago and I went, wow, this is incredible. Got up over top of, I think it was burgers and fries, and went, my goodness, this is, you know, it was really neat. I think that the little I know about the park is that the user experience is from a climber experience, from a walker experience, an experience that isn't on bikes. What has happened now is a trail has been built that goes into a little corner of the park that is used, it's debatable about how much, but it's used by Trials Moto and it's used by mountain bikers. So to only put signage at intersections is a huge oversight in my eyes. What needs to happen is you've got these people who are used to that experience of not encountering a bike, a two-wheeled device of any kind, and now they've got a perfectly built footpath going uphill with no idea that a mountain bike or a moto could be coming down at them. Now when that conflict arises, as it assuredly will, is it not prudent to place signage at the beginning of that zone? You've got a natural barrier, right? From the little I know about the lay of the land in there. From the loop trail to quite a big valley back up to the top of Mountain of Phlegm. There's a better term for it. That's been this barrier, and I think the intention of the trail is to now access the other area of the park. So to that point, I think if you would like consultation on where to sign it from a set of mountain bikers' eyes, I'd be happy to sit down with whoever. But I think these are some of the issues. I think a big part of the issue I'm here, and so many of the people that are here tonight, is because the mountain bike community, essentially the mountain bike community wasn't properly consulted on the impact of this trail. If there would have been a representative from Sorka on your board, I think a lot of these issues could have been nipped in the bud at their inception.
And is there, so from my understanding of Matt Parker through Sea to Sky Trails would usually consult with Sorka. Did you guys have some discussions or?
He was roundly criticized by Brian for doing just that and stepping outside of his user group and representing another group.
Elaine?
So I arranged the consultation on this trail. I think it was October last year that we asked the different committee members that represent different groups to reach out. We were very alive to the fact that there are mountain bike trails there and trials riding. So 99 Trials we reached out to, and we definitely reached out to the person who had your role before you.
Who's sitting right here?
And so further to what Spencer said earlier, it was clear that phase one, it seemed as though we had agreement from the user groups that phase one was okay. It was also clear that phase two needed more consultation. So the idea that it was built out of spite or something is not accurate. There was a misunderstanding. Phase two alignment continued, but there was an intention to consult more on phase two.
Okay. I think that the whole idea of the phase two thing, just tie into that now. This trail, as a lot of people pointed out, they've used it. It's quite a nice trail. It leads you, the intention of the trail, as I understand it, was to lead to the Grand Dug Crag, if it is.
Or to the FM tower.
And then on to the Grand, and then on to the
Yes.
FM tower. I think at this point, it takes you to that crag. Anything beyond that, it, in my eyes, is spiteful. If you look at the machine work that was carried out and where it was carried out, it took out historical trail that has been in existence there for, to the best of my knowledge, 25 years. It doesn't reflect with what is shown on the maps or the phase 2 layout. There's been maps overlaid where it doesn't follow what you guys even pointed out on there. I think reclamation from that Grand Crag beyond would be a good idea. If you're not familiar with the trail features, it's just as Brian pointed out. There's a downhill mountain bike trail. The hiking trail goes directly up it, and without any of that education to bring people up to speed on, hey, you need to keep your chin up if you're going to be walking in this area. Conversely, to mountain bikes, you need to be aware that you're in a multi-use area of the park.
And is that specific to phase 2?
Yes.
Okay.
I probably got other points to make, but I won't take up a bunch of time. I think Sorka's stance on this is that we would like to have a seat on this board. We've had individuals step forward that would like to fill that seat, and I think we really could avoid future conflicts like this from arising with that oversight.
Gary, how is that a committee decision or is that a
No,
district?
Sorka would need to make that request directly to council. Council makes the appointments to the committee, and they need to actually create another position on the committee. So it's not impossible, but that request can't be dealt with here. That would need to go through council. So.
Okay.
Does it require any recommendation from the committee?
Doesn't require, council may choose to do this.
I think
Would it make a difference to council if the committee took a stand on whether or not that was something that we would deem as...
I'm not going to speak for council.
I would suggest yes.
I would suggest yes. Yeah, I would support that.
okay, so do we?
Someone have to make a motion, right?
Yeah, so we'll have to make a motion to council. So do we want to make our motion as a recommendation to council, or do we want to make a motion to council to consider
Recommendation.
a recommendation? Okay. Mike, do you want to put together the motion?
I've never done this before, so someone
I'm not
help me
good
if I'm
at it
not doing it
either.
the right way. But I would like to put forward the motion that we make a recommendation to council that we invite Sorka to the Smoke Bluffs Park Committee.
Okay. We'll go second.
Second.
And we just need one and second, right?
And then-
Show of hands
For what?
for
In favor?
like in favor.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And is there anybody opposed?
Anyone opposed?
And can I just get the name of the seconder? Sorry.
Sean.
Sean Gosnell.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was quick. So
Can
yes,
Can I-
Eric.
That vote seemed like incredibly easy to pass, but numerous comments were made about various conspiracies done in spite, various not true accusations were made, and I just feel like when they actually weren't openly and properly like that, we're incredibly receptive, and we want to be part of the community. And I just think that some of the comments that were said tonight directed at members of this board, when they actually see the reaction of the board to bringing in Sorka, and I would openly say I'd love Sorka to help with the signage and be involved because it's access, then I think that maybe some of those conspiracy and spite comments might be withdrawn or thought about, because I don't think anybody, after knowing members of this board for multiple years, operate in that manner, and it's mildly offensive, I'll be honest with you. I mean, like, I'm saying that quite calmly because it was, I mean, I have no problem with Sorka. In fact, I would love Sorka on board because as I represent CASBC and our position is access, not at the expense of other groups. I represent Climbers Access British Columbia, but it's not one over the other. That is not a good proposition. It creates animosity between user groups, and I think that's a negative way of operating. The way this committee just acted right there, I'd like to say that was a good proposal, and I think that was maybe long overdue.
Thanks, Eric. I'd agree.
Well said, Eric.
I think also to when I took over as chair, that was one of my main goals, and was to make sure that we were all working together better. So I'm happy to see that, and to making sure everybody gets a say. Sorry, what was your name again?
Gary.
Gary.
Sorry, Gary McFarland. Yeah, I'm in construction, and this is how I want to address this. I've been in construction for quite a while, and I'm a trail builder. So going towards the rehabilitation of it, it's not really a problem. If anything is decided to rehabilitate those trails, for getting the volunteers, for doing the work, that's not an issue. It's whether you want to do it or not. And as for, I agree with you, there were some strong words spoken, but you can see it's coming from passion with people. But I would say, like, you paid somebody to do a limited amount of work, and for some strange reason, he went far beyond. Like, my feeling is that the trail should have been laid out quite obviously, so that a machine operator could follow it. That he wouldn't have to consult with anybody through the course of his work to follow the laid out trail. And he would know that he's getting paid to go to this point here. And this is the way it worked in the construction world and in trail building. You only go as far as you're going to get paid. You do not go farther than that unless somebody has made it, not necessarily clear, but they pointed out to you that you go to a certain point and you go past it because it's much easier to ask for forgiveness afterwards than to ask for permission.
If I could just speak to that really quickly. I know Gary had brought up, there was definitely lack of communication between the committee and the district and the contractors. But I do think that the committee itself, this is as far as we got with the trail. We walked the trail, we made a map of it. And I don't think any of the committee itself was not connected into how far the trail went past. But I did want to note that the trail was flagged a number of times and the flagging was all removed. And so that could have added to confusion by the contractor if some of the flags were removed, or I think it had been flagged 3 or 4 times and removed. So the intention was that it would be flagged and built to construct. And we did have construction delays because of the weather in the winter and timing with the contractor. And so I think those are lessons we should learn after the fact. Lessons we have to learn after the fact. As Gary put, that there was some communication gaps for sure that led to this.
Well, I'm thinking that as a former climber, I'm thinking the Grand Dug Crag, which I'm not familiar with, is a pretty obvious landmark.
It is, yeah.
If that guy went past that with his machine, he's paying for that machine unless he has been told or it's been insinuated to him that he should go past, and he is not going to get in trouble for this and he's still going to get paid. Like,
I can't speak to any of us.
No, I'm just
saying
saying
that,
that somewhere out there.
Yeah.
That did not happen.
You can speak for
I can
everybody.
speak clearly, that did not happen.
For here?
Yes.
That
There
guy
was
should
no
not be.
insinuation. Should we have done exactly what you said? Should we have flagged where he should have gone to? You are 100% correct. Was there any freeboard given or insinuation he should go past that? Absolutely not.
You can speak to everyone at this
100%,
table.
yes.
And to speak to our budget we had only budgeted for the first half of the trail.
I know, and I'm speaking on behalf of somebody, that guy is getting paid to do a certain amount of work.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to go past that.
We don't even have budget in our budget is 0 now from up to what phase 1 was supposed to be.
Can I speak?
So yes.
Gary, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're trying to ask what happened and who directed him to go past.
Nope, I don't want to know. I don't
Okay.
care. It's got nothing to
Okay,
do with
thank
me. That's all I'm saying is that, because, and I'm not saying it's part of a committee subterfuge to do this, but if this is in the construction world and this happened, somebody had a beer with this guy maybe, something happened somewhere, and they're like, you got to get it done. Right?
I think that's highly speculative.
You beg for forgiveness afterwards.
I really take exception to that. I have worked with Keith Robertson from Longwood.
That was Keith who did the work?
For many, many years.
Keith is good.
You should not infer that he in any way took liberties.
No, I'm not inferring that Keith took any liberties at all. Keith, see, that's the thing too. This isn't a new guy either, right? This is an experienced trail builder. And like I said before, the Grand Dug Crag would be a very noticeable landmark. Right? And it's pretty hard to go past something like that if the instructions had been even reasonably clear. Right? And this is obviously, I've heard enough about the meetings going in, that this was a controversial subject going all the way in. Right? And there was a lot of debate going back and forth. It wasn't a slam dunk. It wasn't, this is the trail we're going to do and this is where it's going to go. And it was just a matter of, you know, he went offline a little bit. Keith knows what he's doing. He's experienced. He's built trails before. So this is how it looks for me from a construction point of view, from a trail building point of view. If you want to do something that's in a little bit of a gray area where there's some dissent, you get it done and then you ask for forgiveness later. Right? And I've heard a lot of asking for forgiveness tonight. So this is the way, maybe I'm completely wrong, but appearances matter, and this is how it appears to the people outside this room who care. That's how it appears. And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying this is what I think, and if I'm thinking this, there are a lot of other people thinking this. And what they think, they believe. It doesn't matter if it's the truth or not.
Gary, did you have something to add?
That's correct, but I'm not sure that we're on a productive track here in terms of insinuations and casting aspersions on what's happened. Is we've got a trail built. Where to from here? Because who may have done what?
No, but I think this applies to phase 2.
I'm sorry?
I think this could apply to phase 2.
And I'm sort of hesitant to speak, but it seems like what I heard is like, okay, phase 1, we seem to have general agreement. Phase 2, we do not.
Can I make a motion?
No.
So we've got, I've got a bunch of people who've had their hands up waiting to speak. So the first one, Eric, you're fine. And then it was Brian.
Tim.
Oh, for Tim, okay. Oh, I thought Brian had his hand up before. Okay, so Tim. Yeah.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Tim Tlevy. I was on the SORC board for several years before rolling for trail advocacy and planning. I also sat on the Smoke Bluff Park Committee during its, I believe, first, second, and third year after its inception as a representative of the Trials Club. I've also been a climber for a number of years. We, as SORCA, were, I would say, minimally consulted. Checking back through the records, I have an email from early November, November 20th, asking what we thought about the proposal. Our comments were basically that we don't have a problem with the trail in principle. STS didn't have a problem with the trail in principle. Our comment was that it can't disrupt existing mountain bike lines and displace users in that area, and it can't cause a hazard. One of the particular things was no stairs on the alignment, which fortunately we have not seen yet, and that proper signage would have to be in place to mitigate any risk that is formed. Now, what actually got built? Well, first of all, this November 20th, we commented on that, and it sounds like by then, this trail was pretty well baked. The design had pretty well been done. So that is pretty minimal consultation. It really didn't give us any time to get in there and comment on that. It was almost winter at that point. So had any mountain bikers gone in and had a real chance to look at the line, we might have been able to make some minor suggestions and tweaks to fix what is the interaction. Now, not guaranteed, but at least we would have had a better chance to get in there and have a look around. I thank you very much for recognizing that SORCA deserves a seat on this board. We've always thought that, but SORCA has grown a lot and has gained a lot of capacity in the last number of years. So now we have the capacity to do it. We have to look at how we move forward on this one. Obviously, remediating the entire thing is the start right back to phase 1. There's also the option of tweaking that line to better accommodate the mountain bike trails that are in the area. And with proper builder consultation, I'm talking mountain bike trail builders as well, can understand and see a mountain bike line. I would imagine that most people that don't ride Black Diamond mountain bike trails are going to have a hard time looking at that forest and deciding where a Black Diamond mountain bike trail can be built. So I think we need to get some expert consultation in there from the mountain bike community to really see if there is opportunity to reroute the new line to accommodate the old existing trails, or vice versa, move some of the existing trails.
does Sorka or the mountain biking community have the ability to provide that without cost?
Roland? I would say we
Okay.
do. I don't want to speak on behalf of Sorka, but yes.
Okay, that's great.
I'm sure Gary would come up there. I would go up there myself.
Trials group.
Trials group as well. There's no shortage of very well qualified mountain bike trail builders and maintainers in this town that can definitely comment on that. And had we been consulted more thoroughly, we could have been in there during that flagging process to consult at the initial stage. Now that's phase 1.
Can we bring you back up for phase 2? So that we can close off phase 1?
They're related, but yeah, we
Okay.
can do that.
Okay, we'll do that really quick. Okay, so, sorry, the gentleman in the back? Did you?
There might be some other people waiting ahead of me, but
Okay, you're, sorry, the lady from Trials? Jessie, sorry.
Hi, I'm Chessie Knight. I'm president of 99 Trials Association, and I just want to clarify something that the chair said. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Christy.
That the trail was flagged multiple times and flags were removed. Who removed those flags?
We don't know.
Anybody?
We wouldn't want to make false accusations. We would have a good idea, but that would be inappropriate to put a name on the record. Do you understand? Like, we don't have it unless you actually watch someone remove the flag.
No, I know. I'm just saying that obviously is part of how this situation probably came to pass.
Correct.
Okay, one more comment from the gentleman in the 7 mesh shirt. Oh, okay.
Hi. So Brian Goldstone. I just wanted to, sort of looking at this map, make a clarity on some of that. There isn't really any sort of notice that there are mountain bike trails in the area. And I think there is a bit of a confusion between mountain bike and the trials community in that some of these, like Tree Hugger, I originally built 25 years ago. It sort of became a mixed-use trail, so there's like no sort of recognition in the official map. There is mountain biking trails in there, even though if you look at some of the old guidebooks, they go back to.
Oh, do you mean like specific to this map?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's on a different map.
Oh, you're going to a different map? Oh, the park. That's the park map.
The park map.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of these that are, they don't list mountain bike trails, but they sort of list motorcycle trials trail, and I think that could be where some of the confusion is from.
Okay. Eric?
Great point. That map you're looking at, which is different from this one, just for clarity, is actually being reviewed, I think, in this meeting to be updated, and I welcome what you just said.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, one more from the gentleman in the 7 mesh.
Hi there, my name is Tyler Jordan. I'm not
Hi.
affiliated with any organization for the purpose of tonight's meeting, and just speaking as a citizen. I want to just clarify a few things and then kind of maybe try to get some new thoughts on the table and not rehash kind of what we had, but I do want to clarify about a couple things that were said. The first is that I agree with some of the sentiment at the table that some of the things being said tonight are maybe inflammatory or accusatory, and people are passionate, and it's great we all have this shared passion. I'd like to thank the committee for the good work that you guys have done and continue to do on behalf of the park. I will say, to speak up on in defense of some of those inflammatory comments, that if you go back and rewatch the conversation at the November meeting that was held here, there were some quite inflammatory comments made by members of this committee that were quite anti-mountain biking in nature, and that as both a climber and a mountain biker, I didn't think should represent the feelings of the stewardship of the council. I'd like to specifically say, for example, that though we keep saying this, we're considering this as a multi-use trail, there were comments in that meeting about let's build as many stairs as we want on this trail to make sure it's a walking only trail, which certainly doesn't feel very welcoming to mountain biking or trials bikers. There were comments about why would mountain bikers want on the committee, et cetera, et cetera. So it cuts both ways, is all I'm saying. I'd like to clarify also that in the November meeting, there were statements that this zone there was a lot of confusion, and it was clear that there was not a lot of in-depth understanding of how this area is used. There were comments that only elite mountain bikers use it and that they carry their bikes up Silver Spoon to get there. I'm a 49-year-old father of 2 that rides those trails regularly, including specifically the trails that were impacted by this building. Literally dozens of times in the last year I've ridden down Tree Hugger or White Bronco and the associated trails there. So it's not a bunch of 23-year-old punks blasting music and doing crazy stunts. I guess I did want to clarify one comment that was made by one of the speakers about whether the mountain bike speed collision zone is on phase 1 or phase 2. Given the lack of amount of confusion about what is phase 1 and phase 2, I just want to say the way the trail has been built now, there's walking trails leading directly up mountain bike trails, including mountain bikers dropping off obstacles and landing on the walking trail. And I think that I can't overstate that I think if things remain as they are, even with signage, eventually something bad is going to happen, and we should address that and recognize that there will be consequences from that. So I just want to get that on the table. So whether it was phase 1 or phase 2, it's built, and there are places where bad things could happen. And then lastly, I just want to speak more as my background as a climber, not as a mountain biker. I support many of the comments that have already been made about how I think this could be done. I will say two things from a climber viewpoint, which is the statement that several people here have said, well, the trail's built now, what's the point of undoing that work? I think if I went and built a mountain bike trail without consulting you guys through the middle of Penny Lane, I think you would feel quite a bit differently about leaving work done just once it's done for the sake of leaving it done. So I don't think that's a valid argument. And then finally, I'm going to speak as a climber, and I'm going to say why I think that regardless of whether there's any mountain biking or trail spiking there, why I don't think there should be a wide walking trail to the top of the Mountain FM Tower. I wrote this, I'll just read what I wrote here because it's easier. I sent this to Roland because I wasn't sure I'd be able to attend tonight. I moved to Squamish by the way, I moved to Squamish for the climbing. I've lived in Squamish for more than 20 years. I spent my life in the climbing industry. I was the CEO of Arc'teryx. I worked there for 18 years. I know a little bit about it. I've helped establish routes, climbing areas, bouldering areas in Squamish. To me, getting to the tower has always been exciting. True the first time I did it, and still true today. It feels like an accomplishment, like you've gotten out there, a little off the beaten path, a little exposed. One of my fondest memories in life is hiking up from the Smoke Bluffs with my two kids, one of whom is disabled, and then getting to the top and seeing all of Squamish in front of them. They had a wonderful sense of achievement and couldn't wait to tell Mom all about it later. I can't help but feel that having a clear, wide, signed walkway all the way to the top takes away from that experience and takes away from an adventurous little part of Valley Cliff. It makes entering the wilderness and summiting the mountain just another stroll in a local park. I think that's a loss for everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to wrap up phase 1 here. Brian, quickly, because we need to wrap this one up.
Yes. So just thank you all very much for your time and listening. I'm far less fired up right now. I did run into Keith as he was building the trail. Apparently I just missed Andy and Sue, and I'd like to say, nice work getting up there. He very clearly said he was directed to just start at the top and just drag the machine down. But this whole the flags makes me feel a lot better, because that means there was some, I don't know about the whole disappearance, that's shitty, but he was, because I was actually standing on top of the launch having a chat with him, and I'm like, hey, here's the launch here, so where are you going? And if you could put a little dirt on this launch, that'd be nice too. And he's like, oh, I'm just dragging it down the trail. I'm like, okay, thank you, I appreciate your time, because again, big fan of him, not disparaging him, but that was, he's dragging it, he started at the top and just dragged down the path of least resistance. So that's why, but that makes a lot of sense, because when you walk it, that makes a lot of sense. It's exactly what's done. There's a trail here, well shit, let's just get this done, because we got a short window, let's do it. So again, looking forward to solutions. Awesome, thank you.
So I'm going to put forward, because I want to wrap up this topic, because I think phase 2's we're going to have considerable discussion on that. So I'd like to put forward the suggestion and look for, not a motion, but general agreement from the committee that we do some sort of safety consultation on the parts of the trail that the community feels are unsafe and could be a hazard, but with not the idea to reclaim the entire trail, but to remove hazards or sign hazards as needed. Spencer.
Can you modify that to include,
It's not a motion, so this is just general consensus.
The idea though that it's not only about removing hazards, it's also talking about if the trail impacted the existing trail network in such a way that we could actually remediate and bring back the feel of the original with some work to the new. So it's not just about removing the risks or the hazards that have been created, it's also about trying to bring back some of the original experience if we can do that within a reasonable amount of resourcing.
Thoughts?
I think it's
from the-
two things that we need to really address.
Mike?
Are you talking about just phase one right now?
Yes, just
So
phase one.
that's to Grand Dug.
Yes, to Grand Duck. Mike?
I think we've heard a lot from a lot of people who, that was incredibly touching, by the way. That summarized my feeling. Tyler? Yes. Thank you. Where Tyler said that we have in the heart of our town a little mountain that you can summit. That's what I was trying to say. It's different now. That trail, as it exists, has changed it. So for many reasons, but that is the reason for me, that touched the reason. I hadn't been able to put words to it, so thank you. That's unbelievable. There's no town that has a little tiny mountain in the middle of it that you can walk up and summit and have a wilderness experience. So I think it's important that we erase this trail, we reclaim it.
Tim?
I'd just like to say that I think we should, as this committee at least, follow the guiding principles that are now in the OCP, that there's no net loss of mountain bike trails when developments happen. And in this case, there has been a net loss of mountain bike trails. They're not rideable in their current form safely. So with some realignment,
For
tweaking
phase one, are we
phase one, we're talking phase one.
Okay.
Realignment and tweaking of both the new climbing trail and the descending trail is a reasonable option. Now, I'm not saying that Mike's not correct. I would rather see it go that way, honestly. But if we're not going to be able to go that far, at least to follow the no net loss policy that the district tries to follow in development.
So
Christy, can I add one thing?
Sure.
Sorry about that. Further to that, I don't disagree with this committee's goal to provide a nice route to Grand Duck. That's a cool spot. It's really beautiful. Immediately after our last meeting, Wes took me for a walk in the woods, and I actually showed him a route that is a really slick route that's really short. It's about 200 meters. Very easy building. I will go out there on my own time and volunteer to help build it with probably an army of other people that would like to do the same. And I would propose that we consider this route that I found, that's a in and out one-way route, really easily accesses that crag. So we're not eliminating what is important, because I agree that speaking of precious areas in Squamish, that's one of them. It's so cool.
It's precious to all of us.
It's so cool. So I don't want to see that goal get blocked, but there is another way. That's part of the reason I was so upset that it happened, because I was looking forward to speaking about it at the next meeting. And I'd be very happy to propose that route at some point too. But at phase one as it is, I just don't see it working.
Gary, can I look to you for direction on this?
Well, I mean, the selection of a route was chosen by the committee to this point. If we want to add another route, that's possible.
In
I
terms
would
of budget,
suggest-
is it possible? Like in terms of budget, do we need additional budget to move the?
I'm going to say, let's not worry about that. None of this is going to be easy from a budgeting point of view.
Okay.
So let's not let that constrain the discussion.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I don't think this map represents an as-built, and so I'm coming back again to the question of whoever did remove the flags. If there was no flags, I still don't know how this trail got built if it was unmarked. The operator didn't know where to go because the flags had been removed. And this is not an as-built.
I'm not sure what the operator had been provided, whether it was this map or whether it was direction from our maintenance contractor. But I can't speak to that.
It was our understanding that the contractor was very familiar with the route. he's walked it a number of times, flagging notwithstanding. That route was known, didn't need flagging, but the individuals are very familiar with the path. Very familiar.
I would agree with Dory on this wholeheartedly.
So I support looking at ways we can reroute it around existing trails and mitigate safety hazards. But I'm looking at the rest of the committee here. What does everyone else want? Yeah.
And I think, Gary, that I wouldn't, you had made a comment that adding a trail or adding, as Mike had suggested, a different route. I don't think the suggestion is to add a different route, but would actually be to change some of the existing, mitigate and remove some of the existing trail that's being built and then install a different route in the area that you're discussing.
That's what I was saying, yeah. I'd be very happy to walk the route with people. It's actually a lovely route. There's already kind of a roughed in trail already, so there's very little work that needs to be done. And it's a much shorter trail because it's kind of a straight shot with less elevation gain. It's actually easier for climbers to access it, especially if they've come up and over throughout the straight route.
Okay, just before we call out to, it was, sorry, Gary?
Gary.
Just one sec, I want to get committee feedback on this option. Helen?
The trail to Grand Dug seems like it's what's been built seems to be like a really nice trail, and it seems to accomplish what one of the committee's objectives, which is to try and improve access to underutilized crags to spread out the crowds. And so it seems to me that spending additional money and additional disruption to remediate what's just been done to Grand Dug is, to me, that seems like a waste of time. Beyond Grand Dug, I appreciate the comments that have been made, and I can see what you mean about sort of making it less of a wilderness experience to get to the top of Mountain Phlegm. But I'm sorry, the trail to Grand Dug, I don't see how that, as going up as far as Grand Dug, I don't see how that impacts your wilderness experience hiking up to the top of Mountain Phlegm.
Is it okay if it practice mountain bike trails?
We've got a list here.
Is it okay if it wrecks a mountain bike trail?
I don't think that's particularly helpful.
Let her answer.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of mountain bikes in the park. I do recognize that we did acknowledge that mountain bikes use this section of the park, and I will put up with that. But it's not, this park was made originally by the climbers and by the trials riders back in the 80s.
Louisa?
Those are people who use the park.
To me, being really new to this committee, it seems like we need a solution, which is what is being echoed. And to me, it seems like yes, there's going to be cost, and yes, there's going to be inconvenience, but if there is a solution to get people to Grand Dug that really minimizes impact on groups such as mountain bikers or Sorka, that, I ride a bike, I climb, and I hike in there all the time, and it's like, to me, if I walk to Grand Dug on this big double wide trail, or circumnavigate a bit so I don't get in the way of other mountain bikers, who I've never encountered a mountain biker when I hike in there, and I hike in there several times a week, but that chance that there could be problems, why don't we just reroute it a little bit? That's where I sit right now.
Those are my feelings as well.
And just a very brief note, we're building a trail that's going to last a generation or more. This isn't, we're trying to build this for a long period of time. And if it's done incorrectly now is the time to make any reparations so that it's right going forward.
I agree. Gary?
Yeah, so I would suggest that...
Sorry, you have to sit.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with this. So I would suggest that the trail was initially a multi-user trail, considering the fact I've hiked it numerous times and I've biked it numerous times. So there's been a bit of discussion about, well, we spent the money already, but you spent money to build a multi-use trail that was already there.
To
Right,
improve
so-
it, multi-use
So the
trail.
money, yeah, so it was a multi-use trail. You could hike it, you could bike it, you could run it. That's multi-use, right? Now it's just wider and more obvious, which will just bring people who aren't willing to step off the beaten path, right? So that money, in my eyes, was wasted. Now Mike's come up apparently with a good solution, like just going sight unseen. I don't know what the trail he's talking about, the route he's talking about. But there's been objections to Mike's suggestion because it's not in the budget, it's this expenditure, whatever. Okay, hand it over to the trail builders.
That was more of a
We-
question of whether, like, I'm used to like assessing capabilities. What are our capabilities to use that issue?
But there, a couple people said, what about a budget? Can we do the expenditure? And Gary said, don't worry about that, let's get on to something else. And that's what I'm saying, okay, hand it over to trail builders. Volunteer trail builders. We'll go out and build you access to Grand Dug, which it seems like everybody wants. So there's your main point. It will also be, it will minimize conflict, right? Because this won't be built as a biking trail. It won't be built on top of a biking trail. It won't cost you a penny. It won't cost you a drop of sweat. We will do the work, right? Like, and I'm not speaking for Sorka. I'm speaking as, like, say I'm speaking for me and Mike. Me and Mike will go out and build it, and then we'll rehabilitate phase 1 as well. And we'll bring that back down to something that's not going to lure people off of the beaten track who maybe shouldn't be there. Why not leave it? Sure, it's underutilized. But like I ride down through the snow bluffs, right? And on a regular basis, and whenever there's climbers out, and I was one of those clueless climbers for years, right? You think they're walking on the double wide past Zombie Roof, which is a quadruple wide. And they don't notice a bike coming down. Their bikes aren't quiet, right? They're not that quiet on gravel until you're really close, and then they get startled because they're so focused on things. And this is traveling slow on a wide open area. Never mind the potential conflict, right? When you've got drops, big drops. I have been advised by my friends who know my riding ability that I should not be riding those things, right? They're hard enough. I'm decent, but apparently I'm not that decent, right? And so I think Mike has come up with a solution that if there is no underlying layers here, that you guys just want a trail to Grand Dug, maybe we can provide that, and you don't have to do anything but sit back and say thank you.
Well, I don't have any hesitation that other user groups would want to be part of that as volunteers of those user groups as well. Like, it wouldn't have to be solely the mountain bike community, but Eric first.
Would you consider making that generous offer with modifications to the existing trail so that we don't, so we can maintain the mountain bike trail, which is what Tim's advocating, but using what you have said you would do, so therefore the climbers get access by modifying the trail to the Grand Dug.
You mean phase 1 trail?
We're not talking about phase 2, just phase 1.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to make the same offer to take a trail that exists, walk it, reroute it when necessary to avoid the mountain bike conflict, so the mountain bikers don't get the net loss, the mountain bikers are happy, and then...
That's what he's suggesting.
If it makes sense.
He's
full reclamation.
He's selling full reclamation and a new trail. That's a different suggestion to the existing trail being modified. That's what I'm saying. Would the same offer that you just made apply to fixing the first trail?
If it makes more sense than Mike's solution, I would go with whichever one makes more sense.
Eric, it might make this all more clear if I show on the map what I'm talking about,
Yep.
so it's not confusing. Okay. Do we have a laser pointer here?
No.
No. It's difficult.
What about, could you borrow the mouse?
Oh, yes. So,
Is it possible to turn the lights on for a second?
now this is going to be rough, but thank you. So this right here, you can see the little mouse up there? There we go. So the trail right now comes in, the top of the stairs is right about here. And then you go in the trail here, and this is where there's actually a lot of conflict. And you can see there's a long overlap there too.
Right at the junction there? And then
right
the
here,
overlap?
there's sort of
Okay.
about 100 feet or so of real overlap.
Okay.
The route that I walked west the other day, actually goes from about here. There's a really lovely little, why is my mouse disappearing here?
Oh, it's there.
That's odd.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's typing. Okay. It goes up through here past the P, and then in through here and almost straight across to Grand Dog. It's very short.
And what are the impacts to the trails it's crossing?
It has 90-degree, and this is where Spencer's input is very important because these are trials trails in here. It goes straight across them at a 90-degree. It doesn't overlap in any way, and I'd love again to go in here and look at it with you. I think we're probably going to need to do a whole other little round of consultation to make sure it works for everybody. This in here, kind of right under the P, is the most difficult section. Chrissy, there's a section from me to you that is probably about this steep, and it's about as wide as the table. So
is it dirt or rock?
It's almost like, no, it's loam. It's almost like you take this entire thing, tilt it at about 40-degree, and it's loam. That is the crux of the entire section. There might need to be cedar stairs here, but we're speaking about a lot of volunteers. Heck, I'd throw $200 at some cedar. I bet you a lot of people would. So I don't think it'd be too hard to get some cedar for stairs in there. That, to me, is the one challenge. The rest of it, the trail is actually almost already there. There's a very rough, very primitive climbing trail in there already. I think people may be used to use that to access Grand Tub. You know better than I do, but that's the route.
Brian?
Proposing a complete new trail, that's, how is that different from reclamations?
A part of the trail to be rerouted.
Actually,
sorry, as I said, Brian, there is a trail there already, but it's
That's to reroute the entire trail.
Can I speak to that?
Tim, yeah.
There seems to be some hesitancy to reroute the entire trail. If that's the better option, I don't think there'd be any real negative to that. I mean, we're not asking the committee for money. We're not asking, I'll get involved, I'll build this too. Nobody's asking for any money. I'm just gonna give an option that at the end of the day works better. I've been in construction basically all my life, and I always had a principle that if we go and find out we've done something wrong, we go backwards as soon as we possibly can to fix it. We go back as far as we have to, rather than just saying, well, we screwed up a little bit, but let's just keep going and see if we can fix it later. Best thing is just to back up, especially if this is a viable option that works, and do it. There's no challenge. You guys don't have to do anything. I mean, love to get participation and help. But then we end up with a win-win. Mountain biking trials have the lines that originally existed. Everybody's happy on that front. Climbers have a good access trail that is a character that work well to get in there. I don't really want to see anybody sweating about going backwards a little ways, saying, well, we built it, let's keep it. Let's step back, and if it makes sense, let's go backwards a step and get a better outcome at the end of the day.
Louisa. Thanks, Tim.
So, I think this is speaking personally, what I need from this to make a decision is I need a map, and I need to walk it, and I need to get input from all users. And as much as I love, I mean, I can't imagine how frustrating it is to have to rehash some of this, and also frustrating for you folks over here. And I can probably speak for a good number of people in this room. We don't want to do this again. So I loved your mouse. It was great. I need more than a mouse.
Absolutely.
You know, like I need a plan. Yeah. I need to walk it, and I need us to have time to think about it to move forwards. That's where I'm sitting. Before I say yes, let's reroute something. No, let's not.
So from my perspective, what really kind of rang true to me is Spencer's comment that this is going to last a long time, this trail. So I do think it's important that we get whatever revisions we're going to make to it, whether it's taking this whole new route, whether it's reclaiming parts of it and mitigating safety risks, or nothing at all, depending on what we vote on. I do think it's important that we get it right. So we have 1 hour left in this meeting. So do we want to agree, like have a general agreement that we take some actions away from this meeting for section 1 and move forward with those actions, whether it be walkthrough, trail assessment, looking at alternate trails, and bring these to the next meeting and leave section 2 off the table until further consultation.
We're all here now.
Yeah.
Section 2, we need to address today.
Okay,
A
so,
lot of it's already been built according to that as-built.
okay, so section 1, okay, so let's make some action items for section 1. So, we want to have a trail assessment done by someone in the mountain biking community, but I think we should have representatives of all users. Like, I would like to be present at that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone should be there.
Yeah.
That's why this has arisen in the first place. Everyone needs to be there at this time.
So, will we have a committee walkthrough with certain members of the mountain biking community and
And the committee.
and the committee at whole? Yeah. Is that okay? So that's one. So we're going to schedule a walkthrough. And then for next meeting, we're going to need someone to GPS that route, the new route, and provide some documentation on a map of the proposed alternate route and recommendations for repairs. I also think we should map the safety concerns.
Can I suggest that if we're going to have a field trip, that we do both on the same, is that rather than
Oh, both parts of the trails?
get this option, this other option, GPS.
Okay.
At the same time you walk the trail, you can walk the alternate so that you're out in one rainy day.
Okay.
Rain.
It's easy to do and
Yeah.
just take long.
So that if you're out in the field, you do it, we only have to sort of,
Okay, so our
So
walkthrough is
just
going to
together one?
include walking
Yes.
the new trail, our new proposed trail, marking safety impacts, discussing signage,
This is for the existing trail.
and up to Grand Dug is what we're talking about. Phase 1 only.
So Chrissy, a question for clarity. We will be, as a group, along with representatives from the mountain biking community, walking the existing trail and see where to diverge off that existing trail to get to Grand Dug, or walking on a completely new trail?
Both.
Both, okay,
Both, yeah.
great.
And so, okay, so this is what this next walkthrough is going to cover, and then we need some outcomes for next meeting. So we're going to need a, Brian.
One more thing also would be helpful if we had an accurate map of where the trail actually is.
Okay.
Because, yeah, this is the proposed, but as we all know, it doesn't.
Oh, yeah. So I do believe there's a member of the community that can provide that to us.
Sorry,
One and two.
guys, if you are going to talk, you need.
Okay, all right.
Hello, Brian Reiser. I think it would also be helpful if we were provided a map. That was the proposed route, but the trail has already been built, phase 1 and phase 2, so it would be useful to have a map of where the trail currently is right now.
Okay, I think we can accommodate that.
I got an email that has this as built.
Yes, we can get that from the person who made that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's that. Coming from that, we'll update the map as built. We'll note safety concerns, signage improvements, and potential for new or remediation to trail. Is everyone in favor of this? Okay, so that's general consensus on what to do for phase 1. Eric?
Maybe it's a little early, can I make a proposal to put it to the
Yes.
table? The underlying issue that's cause of this, has been said multiple times, is the consultation process. The consultation process has been accused of being various subterfuge and various layers, which you can believe it if you wish, but they don't exist. The way I would like to suggest is create a simple consultation process that future developments like this have to follow. I'd like to put it to council that they write a one-page document saying this is the consultation process, these are the user groups, this is how they sign off on it, and therefore this cannot happen again, because that's what we're trying to avoid. And therefore we can actually ask the council to, or someone on staff to write that one-page proposal, and then we can bring it in and we can look at it and go, yeah, that brings in this user group, this means it gets rid of this whole, you're doing this, and it gets rid of that entirely. So it's all above board and apparent, and it gets rid of this conspiracy that I'm hearing again and again. So my proposal is that we asked someone on the council to actually just make a one-page consultation process checklist that we approve, that everyone can look at and everyone agrees upon. Therefore, we avoid this in the future.
Gary, do you guys have that list already? Or something, or is it like unique to each project?
I think it's pretty unique to each project, so that was a thought I had when Eric was describing that, was would it be specific to future trails or park improvements, but I think it is a good idea.
Just I was thinking it would just be for Smoke Plus Park consultation checklist that we go through, and here's a signature from Sorka, here's a signature from 5 members of the community, here's a signature, whatever it might be, and therefore you look at it and you go, okay, have we done the consultation properly? Yes, great, we can move forward. Then if it comes back afterwards, all this accusations of it, we can look and say, well, here's the process, we followed it legitimately, and we're trying to do the right thing. So my proposal would be that that consultation process happens with Sorka, the climbers, the Smoke Park Committee, local residents. There's a bunch of user groups that need to be identified.
Sorry, I'm just color coding my notes. Can we send that away with the district? Is it Asia? Would that be you?
That's probably
me. Okay.
Nice to meet you. Sorry. Do we vote on that? Or?
Do we have general consensus that that's a great idea? Okay, then we don't. Sorry, Roland?
Yeah, I'll take a Yeah, if I may, just quickly, that's great, the consultation process, but I think the reason we're all here now is, yeah, we had a checklist of the consultation process, but what we have now versus what we were consulted on are two different things. So that's important to include in that.
Sure.
Okay.
Like kind of a follow-up on that is all.
Great, thank you. Okay, so
Sorry, I'd also like to say that the consultation process that you guys have and that's been printed out for this was fantastic. It had all the user groups already there. I mean, my name was right there above in big capital letters, not consulted. Like, you guys have the list. It's just a matter of, I guess, more thorough. And following it, because the Trail Society and that, there was a lot of really good comments about all these concerns that we've all mentioned. They were all mentioned at the November meeting. All of them were mentioned. And a lot of them were ignored.
okay, so moving on. So we've got 3 action items for phase 1. And we'll repeat those at the end of the meeting so that we can have them minuted. And let's move on to phase 2. So for phase 2, we're looking at the same things: rerouting, reclamation, stopping. So let's start with ideas.
Well, we don't know what we're doing with phase 1 yet, so how do we start working on phase 2?
Well, but there's a portion of phase 2 that's already been built.
Yes, okay.
So.
Phase 2, our community will never support that route. This route was not what we walked, what we originally agreed to. This route was brought to us at an after meeting and was actually dropped almost as a surprise on us from our committee walkthrough, and it drives basically a stake into the heart of the trials area and puts a huge bit of the community, you're hoping to attract lots of the community, right onto the primary access routes we have from the parking lot in the front, the newly expanded parking lot, and also one of the access routes from, or 2 of the access routes from Valley Cliff. It basically puts everybody winding a circuitous route through it, immediately inviting conflict.
Well, and that's great feedback. Like, we need to know these things.
And we did know these things because I said that when this route was presented to us.
But phase 2 was not intended to have started.
Correct, which is, my point is, we will never support it, and we will only ever support the removal of the construction that has already occurred. It's just, it is too contentious, and studies have demonstrated time and time again, you do not put 2 vastly different user groups on the same trail. There's a user experience that people have an expectation of, and it is often not motorcycles. And we're going to upset a great number of people who don't expect to see them with that route. So we will only support the removal of that trail.
And that's good. That's good to be noted. And these are things we need to know looking at this next phase. But let's hold off on conversation. Okay, let's start with conversation about the parts of phase 2 that have been built already and then we can move into how any further consultation and directives for the next stage of phase 2, if there's going to be one. So we need to talk about what we want to do about the parts of phase 2 that have been built. Who wants to start? Eric.
I walked up to phase 2 doesn't quite, like when you look at this yellow line, it goes to the summit. Phase 2 doesn't do that. Phase 2, the contractor ended it's just at a spot that I don't know how to describe. It just stops and then it goes. And it ends up just turning into a plethora of other trails with other crags and other mountain bikes and trails, and it's just a mix smash up there. So currently phase 2 doesn't go anywhere. It's already kind of like it makes it hiking easier for people in double lanes, but then you get there and you still have to go. It's still quite steep. It would still be inappropriate for people if they can't hike off that sort of trail. They can't go further than that point anyway, and then you don't end up anywhere.
Okay, Tim.
Yeah, phase 2 ends at Labor Bluff. Ties right into what's a trials and a mountain bike trail. There's already a trail. There has always been a trail to the top from Grand Duck. Now, it's not a complicated section of forest. They've just gone and plowed a road straight up the fall line across a couple trails to where the double track trail ends at Labor Bluff. From there on, there's no way to continue a double track trail like that to the summit without destroying a mountain bike line and good character. These guys are talking about the character of that trail up there. That's a fun little craggy section for people to be walking through. We don't need a double track road to the top of that peak. Yeah, as far as from Grand Dug up to where it ends, it's a hack job of a trail. No offense to the builder, but it's not very nice. I mean, we would have picked a much nicer looking line that respected the existing trails and respected the character of these existing trails, which were footpaths, not a machine path to nowhere. I agree with Spencer. Reclamation on that one is definitely warranted.
Anyone else from the committee? Thoughts on reclamation of what's been built currently to phase 2?
I support reclamation for all the same reasons that everyone's saying.
Gary, did you have something there? Oh, okay. Laura? No?
I don't have an opinion on phase 2.
Okay. Brian, Helen?
I tend to support what other people have said about reclamation.
Mm-hmm.
What's the crag above Grand Dug?
I'm not sure what the name is.
Because the trail does go to another crag.
Skunk Hollow is at the very top.
Is it Skunk Hollow?
There's Skunk Hollow is right at the trails around the top where there's a marsh and there's a bunch of mountain biking. It looks like a training area. There's little bridges everywhere.
And there's
That's trials training.
There's trials, but they've coexisted for a while. That little crag and this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's coexisted like that for years.
Oh yeah,
because no climbers really go there because it's
what's
too
the
far
crag?
back.
What's the crag that's got 2 logs across the bottom?
There is another one that goes Grand Dug, and then there is one other crag there.
I don't know what that one is. It's got a strange name.
No, above the one.
Yeah,
above
there is a
one.
mini one right there.
And it looks, like it's got a couple of climbs on it, and it's been cleaned out a little bit at the bottom, and it's worth promoting that crag, I think, but.
I just never see climbers back that.
Well, part of it is because there's not a trail. I mean, that's one
There's
thing.
trails there. There's trails that exist. There's
I
no
know, but
question.
they're probably gnarly, and they probably don't. I mean, when you build a machine trail, it does encourage people to go there. So,
or signs. Sorry, no.
And so it does promote what we're trying to do is spread people out. But certainly beyond that, Crag, there's no need to have a machine trail beyond that. And even the machine trail to it could be, I think you could get people up to that crag just with kind of brushing out what was already there. So beyond Grand Dug, I don't see any reason for a machine trail.
Eric?
That crag is only about 50 meters away from the end of the trail.
Yes, it is.
It's not much, like you'd be decommissioning if we go down that route. Twice the length of this route.
I'm fine with sort of re-examining phase 2 with the recommendations of the mountain biking people to avoid conflict. So I'm not so clear on the rerouting of phase 1. I'd have to be persuaded on that.
We'll have further consultation on that. I'm in support of reclaiming phase 2 from Grand Dug forward. Eric?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look for general consensus in the committee. So I'm just kind of, if we can all agree on stuff, we don't have to vote, so.
Can you vote on that?
You'd like us to vote?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't, well, it's just who's in favor?
I'd like to ask about the resources that would be involved in that reclamation project.
Well, I think we are gonna have to source community resources, whether it's from all of our user groups or user groups that have the capacity.
Are you
That's
talking about
actually,
phase two?
that's
or phase
actually
one?
an alternate question, I think,
Phase
to
two
whether or not it should
from
be
Grand Dog.
reclaimed from, you know, the park infrastructure question. The next question is, how do we resource that? I think the bigger question that we're discussing is, does that trail belong there as it's been built?
I'm also mindful of our discussion at the last meeting. The park has a lot of infrastructure needs and desires. So this is also my thinking. But I'm happy with your, I agree with your point.
So all in favor?
It's a pretty easy guess.
Yeah, all in favor?
I need a
Reclaiming,
Well, yeah.
for reclaiming from Grand Doug
To the
to
end of
where they had built to the end of phase 2. And then if we, let's vote to whether we're in favor of it, and then we'll figure out how we do it.
Can I move in a second, please?
I move it. Or
A second. Helen seconds.
Okay.
Or we can all, I think.
No, so. She's running the meeting.
Pardon me?
You-
Oh, I'm running the meeting,
you're
yeah,
running
sorry.
the meeting.
I'm just writing action points down too at the same time. Okay, so it's decided that we'll reclaim. So you guys both brought up valid points, so.
We didn't vote. We need to have the vote.
We did, oh, was that not a vote?
No, we need to have the vote, make the motion. then you
Oh,
vote.
okay.
There's a motion, a seconder.
Oh, we weren't making a motion, we were having a vote, which is different.
No,
I thought you made a motion.
no.
I was-
Spencer made the motion,
Yeah.
Helen seconded it.
I wasn't seconding something, I was.
Oh, okay, we have to have a
I just
vote
was- I
after.
was asking for your question to be clear.
I can make the motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Which you did clarify that it was.
Okay,
So,
motion.
I make the motion that we reclaim phase 2 of the trail from Grand Dug up to where the contractor terminated his work. Did I say
I'll second that.
Do you want to add something to that?
No.
And what else do you want to do?
No.
No, not yet.
No?
There's no-
Okay, show of
Just
hands
reclaim.
on that?
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Okay,
Can I have the seconder, please?
Eric.
Eric.
Oh, no, that wasn't what I was trying to do then.
You was it Eric Anderson or Eric?
Eric Hughes.
Eric Hughes.
Yeah. My only concern is, can we just define where reclamation stopped? Because it would be another mistake to say, oh, I thought it ended here and I thought it ended here, and we go through this whole process again. So can we, I'm voting for
This is
it.
from Grand Dug.
Right, but that's a variable that could be interpreted in a couple of ways. I just want to say, make sure that we're all on the same page, so we don't have this kerfuffle again.
So there's almost like an amphitheater there.
There's an
So I don't think
amphitheater
that
there,
amphitheater should be
yeah.
touched.
Yeah, so it's basically as you re-enter the trees after the amphitheater,
I would agree
going
with that.
uphill. Is that clear? So you walk around Doug, you're in an amphitheater, you go up the trail a little bit, not very far, 10 meters, whatever it is, goes into the forest again. Can we define that as like the reclamation point? Just, there's no ambiguity.
The dotted line on the map.
As we know, maps are a little inaccurate at times.
Okay,
Yeah.
is everyone in favor of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so now we need to look at how we're gonna do this. So, are we looking to source?
We kind of need Gary in.
Yeah.
You can have a recess.
I think, okay, we're gonna have a 5-minute recess.
These are eyes.
Okay, we're ready to go, guys, here. Thanks, everyone. Let's just continue to keep this meeting on track by putting up your hand, and I'll get to you when I can. But it's great that everyone feels comfortable sharing and participating in the discussion. So where we're at is we've voted to go ahead with reclamation from Grand Dug, starting in the trees, to the extent of where it was built. And we were just about to start talking about how we would go about doing that. Does anyone have any ideas?
Do we have any budget left?
Sue?
No. And the short and sweet of it is, no.
Didn't our friends from Sorka volunteer some funds for this?
But I need to come up here?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I don't think on behalf of Sorka, we would.
Don't touch.
Oh, yeah, no, that's it, Mike. I don't think you need a budget. I don't think there's a budget required for the
Okay.
reclamation of that portion that we discussed from Grand up. It can be handled amongst the volunteer group.
Okay. And I think, I'm personally part of the climber community. I could find some resources that could help with trail building and. Okay, so reclamation by volunteers.
Can we ask who's going to take the point on that?
Yes. Roland, do you want to work with me on that? On taking the point on leading the reclamation?
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that?
Do we have any problems with the district, since how we will be working within a park?
Don't believe so,
No.
no.
Okay.
We can work with both groups, and we will work with both groups.
Okay.
And I will keep the committee updated on anything that's happened, that Roland and I have discussed and moved forward with. And if anyone wants to be part of it, give me an email, send me an email. Okay, so reclamation by volunteers. Now we're looking at where do we go from here for phase 2? Is that a discussion for another day?
Another day.
Okay. Eric?
Can I just add one more thing? Part of the problem that Chester was addressing was that there was rogue activity happening with flagging being removed, trails being covered up, and we don't know exactly who is doing it, but there's connections between people in the room and that person. I would like to just say that their behavior actually causes more problems for both user groups than it coming to the table and participating. So if you are connected to the individual who is doing this, or individuals doing this, we invite them to the table to participate rather than acting rogue, because it creates more problems in the community, animosity, and then issues had. So if you know those members of the community, without naming names, I ask you to reach out to them and say, hey, be part of the process, and it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, that is a great suggestion, because I think, yeah. Okay, so we have reached the end of this list I had. So we have a few other items on the agenda. It's a public meeting. You're welcome to stay. The following, I'll just read out the items so we can get through them quickly, but so you guys know if you'd like to leave or not. We've got park budget update, park events update, which I don't have anything for, so we'll move through that really quickly. Trails update, which Laura doesn't have much for. We've got a small part from Brian for Crag work group update, and then we have the appointment of the committee chair, and then roundtable.
Chris, can I ask a question? 'Cause
Yes.
Something seems, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I missed it, I do gap out occasionally. What is gonna happen with phase 1 for now? Like, are we posting a sign, do not enter, this is closed, there's ongoing discussion? Like, because as of now, there's a trail sitting there that may be disappearing. So what is gonna be the public's perception, and what do we do between now and when we decide what we're doing moving forward?
That's a good question.
There kind of needs to be a pause, perhaps, so I'm just wondering what that looks like.
Any recommendations from the district on like how the district would deal with this in their other parks?
Probably what I'm going to suggest is that
it's going to be very difficult to stop people from going up there. Even signage, no matter what you put in there, they're still going to walk it. Until the reclamation's done on phase 2, then I think if we can put some kind of signage on there and still allow them to use it, they are going to use it no matter what.
Eric?
So,
Can I just suggest a simple sign that says, under construction, proceed with caution? And that's about it, and then people who are going into it know that it's a work in progress.
I'm in favor.
What I'm going to suggest is that we'll have our staff members perhaps walk it with someone from Sorka, we can identify the key areas and we'll sign that as we need to get us through until we make the final decision on.
Okay. I'm in support of that. Is everybody?
You mean, can I just clarify, multiple signs up the trail rather than just one right at the start saying under construction? It's just like, it's a blanket statement.
I don't know what the solution will be.
And that may not address the risks that have been created by the construction of the trail. So I think what Gary's talking about actually is going to address the risks while the two user groups are on the same line.
There's about 3 drops that I identified that are probably the major hazards which have been reiterated here.
Yes.
Okay, we'll walk it with the soccer folks, we'll flag the issues and might be 1 sign, might be 2, might be 20. I don't know right now, but we'll try and get something that gets us through until we're ready to.
And I'd be happy to join with you guys on that if you need.
Okay.
Okay, so that concludes the East Side Loop Trail discussion, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, everyone's welcome to stay. And we do appreciate spending time tonight to give us your feedback. And I appreciate all the volunteers here that have been on the committee for years. And I know it's a difficult discussion, so I think everybody did a great job. Let's move on to Sue, the budget update and park maintenance contract.
Alrighty, budget. The operating budget for the committee, $5,000. And for 2019, we have one bill in right now that's come through for Climb On. Actually, I think it was Brian. And then we still have an anticipated invoice for the East Side Trail. For the contract services for 2019, $24,000 is the budget. Year-to-date expenses is $8,598. Remaining budget $15,402. However, there's a good portion of that is spoken for the maintenance contract, so everybody knows. And then out of that came the also the rungs that were done at Lumberland. I believe it was 15 rungs that were completed at Lumberland.
There's been fairly positive response from the
So
community.
that's good to hear. And so then just moving into some of the new business, there are some piles of branches collected through the rock climbing development, both historic and recent, were pushed over the cliff in preparation to chip. This was done with BC Hydro Squamish Trails and the elementary school, elementary grades 5 and 6. So that was spread under the power lines, so just kind of get rid of some of that fuel that, I guess we've all been on a tour up there and taken a look. East Side Trail has been talked about lots this evening. There was a removal of old metal gating from broken mountain bike bridge ramp near Smoke Bluff Summit, and it's been buried and took out the metal. Re-graveled the ascending trail from the parking lot that had become quite muddy and from the rain and whatnot. I guess a lot washes down through that area. There was some danger tree deadfall taken atop from Penny Lane, Crag, and final debris needs to be removed from the below the power windows climb. So other than that, we're just getting to the growing season now, so any brushback that will take place and just continual maintenance of the trails and the park itself.
Spencer.
You guys have been, working now in operations within the park for a little bit. How are you finding it? Do you find that it's more work, less work, same type of work that you were expecting? And do you think everything is getting done that you're feeling you need to get done?
Yes, I do. Okay. Yes, I do believe everything gets done, and probably and then some. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
that's super.
Actually, no, we're quite happy with the way it's going.
Anything else, Sue?
That's it.
Okay, great. We'll move on to parks events update. I haven't received any events from Devon yet, but I'm sure they're going to start coming in from like the races, bike races, running races, and anything that isn't routine, I'll bring up to the committee. And then we've got Laura. Any trails updates?
I was going to just talk about how much I was really enjoying the new trail that was just constructed, and I really liked the work that Keith Halverson did. But I'm still going to say that. But I did also do Lumberland, and there has been some cement little steps put in there, and I think the work that was done was really good, because it's not going to make people want to go up there anymore than they were before. It's still, but it's still safe.
It's still a climber's access trail,
Yeah, it's still a climber's access, because I went up there, I'm like, yeah, I did it, I'm not going to do that again.
Okay.
So I think they did it right, because you don't really want to have the runners going up there.
And as long as it's safe for then not having, like, with the fixed line that fell, so.
Yeah, so I was really happy, whoever did that work, thank you, it's great.
So Brian, on to Crag work group.
Yes.
Oh, and Asia had a photo you were gonna put up.
Oh, yeah.
Can somebody hit the lights?
I should say for the benefit of you members.
We're going to turn a couple on.
Let Cassie deal with the lights.
There you go.
So we can still.
Yeah.
You'll turn them down appropriately.
Yeah. That's good.
Awesome.
Okay.
We know whose work that is.
Yes, for the benefit of new members of the committee, this committee had decided in the past and passed through council a recommendation that the Smoke Bluff Park adhere to best practices in rock climbing. That includes anchors, etc., etc. And we have signed off on that, and we have that expectation in the Smoke Bluff Park from our developers, who by and large comply. However, there's historical significance, the historical number of climbs that have used hardware which does not fall under the Union International guidelines, and we have been gradually replacing this over the years. I can report that we just donated from the committee's budget $350 to two of our park volunteers to carry on this remediation, which is an ongoing process. On another topic, our well-respected local route developer, Harry Young, who several years ago reclaimed cracked rock to great effect. It's now one of the most popular crags around for teaching and is widely used. Has now turned his attention to Crag X, and the level of workmanship is typical of Harry, and he will be removing certain anchors put in by a certain individual on that project, so we're grateful for that. So generally, the park is running well from the rock climbing perspective. There's nothing really more to add to that.
Great, thank you. So our next item is appointment of the 2019 committee chair. So I received a nomination or expression of interest from Wes. I've got an email, just so we can, and so I'd like to nominate Wes. Here, I'll just pass those all around.
Where Wes couldn't make it today?
No, he couldn't.
Do you want to make a formal announcement?
Yeah, so I'd like to formally nominate Wes for chair from today.
Are you willing to do it again?
I'm not allowed,
Can
but
Can I speak to that?
you may.
The rules say you can't do more than 2 years, but you've been one of the best chairs we've had. Is there any way to change the rule? Because it's not like you're the President of the United States here. I mean, let's face it, is there any way we can make a proposal that we can keep the existing chair and then go to a 4-year term, and then we can review it then? Is that possible?
So I can do that. It's within the bylaw that the term of the chair be for 2 terms, 2 consecutive terms. So and they're 1-year term for each chair. And that was a recent addition to the bylaw in order to change up the chair every once in a while, and maybe make things work a little bit differently. And so Chrissy has completed 2 terms. And there's nothing to stop her from rerunning again after this year break. However, you would have to suggest to council to amend the bylaw again to revert it back, and there was a purpose behind the change that they just implemented. So
that was just implemented this year? Or?
It was implemented 2 or 3 years ago, before
2017.
Just as you became the chair.
It made sense at the time because certain chairs have different styles and can cause conflict, and certain chairs work better. So now in certain cases it's working against us, in certain cases it's working for us.
Yeah, I must admit, having served 3 terms as chair of this
Do you
committee.
want to? Is this something you're interested in? Okay.
No, I've been offered it in the past. I don't have that. She's just really good at it.
So,
Why change what's, you know?
So Wes had volunteered to do it, and he was reluctant when I spoke to him about it because I thought he would be a good candidate, having almost been booted, and he has been a very dedicated individual of this committee for a long time. And with his hesitancy, I suggested that I would be nominated as co-chair. So if he's not available to chair the meetings, then I can take over. Or if he's not comfortable chairing the meeting, I can do that.
Can we ask for an exception to the bylaw? A one-time exception? No.
You can ask for an amendment.
That's not how government
That's
works.
not how
So we would have to ask for an amendment.
You
Okay,
have
so.
to make a motion for an amendment to the bylaw.
The only thing, and it kind of makes me uncomfortable to suggest it, but there have been communications from Wes that have, let's put it the way that I think about it, undervalued users who are not, who are mechanized. And having a chair who, has stated those things in emails and in the meeting itself have made me somewhat uncomfortable at times.
Like dirt bikes?
Okay, sorry guys, if we're gonna discuss the personal information or personal
this is-
comments about who we're considering, I feel like this should be a closed meeting. So if we wanna keep our comments not of that nature.
Okay.
Second.
Sorry.
What do you
I
think?
think we should propose for,
You mean amendment to the bylaw?
no, not at all. Just move forward with nominating Wes as chair.
I'm supportive of it.
I'm supportive of it.
So we
With
will need,
With you as co-chair?
can I nominate myself or does someone else?
I can nominate.
Okay. Then we can, so is everybody in supportive of this configuration?
No.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not supportive of Wes.
I think we need a vote.
Okay, so
So let's do a motion. So basically, if there's no you should call for other nominations for the position of chair,
Okay.
and then you should take a vote.
Okay, is there call for
Do you
nomination?
not agree?
however, if there is discussion about said nominations, that's when we need to go into camera.
Okay. Okay, so I'll call for, would anyone else like to be nominated for chair?
Keep trying it.
No.
I gotta accept the position.
You're sitting in for
I'm not allowed, yeah. Can't you see?
Carolyn.
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 I like Carolyn.
I'm asking, I'm sure.
I don't think we should nominate people in absentia
Yeah.
unless we have, as
The
we
letter.
have here, written confirmation they're interested.
Right.
And I can tell you that that wouldn't fly. I can ask them that pretty soon.
What happens if we want to consider asking someone who's not at the meeting?
Do we have to
I would
elect a
ask
chair
her as
tonight?
well.
We can vote to postpone. We did that last meeting.
When's the deadline?
I don't know.
I feel like the decision needs to be made on this. You're 4 months into the year already of a 1-year term. So it's not really productive to defer it another time.
Okay, so do I just put a motion forward for what we discussed and then people, if they don't approve it, then it can't go forward?
If there's no further nominations, then you should vote on the current nomination and people can oppose that. And if it doesn't carry, then you'll have to look at another option.
Can I nominate Eric Anderson?
Can Councillor?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's a voting member of the committee.
Oh, yeah, I second that.
Can council member be the chair?
Yes.
Okay,
If
thank
you
you.
want to.
I will decline at this time. Thank you for the,
Can I make a proposal and just throw it out there, see who gets the votes? I propose the amendment to the bylaw, see who gets the votes here. Can I do that?
Yeah, so
Because-
you can, so for the council.
My motion to council is that we change the bylaw to a 4-year term and keep the existing chair.
4-year maximum, or
Yeah.
if they're voted?
4-year
But
maximum.
they have to still be voted in every
Yeah.
year,
Yep.
but 4-year maximum.
One time only.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let me do that.
The problem with the motion is that the terms that are appointed by council are 2-year terms. So you would be appointing somebody a 4-year chair or just reappointing them every year?
Reappoint them every year.
Okay.
So then it would just mean there was a problem, they could be voted out, but if it was good.
For a
they just-
maximum of 4 years.
For a maximum of 4 years, so it's a
Yeah.
yearly vote. It would take 2 seconds, we all keep going, boom, after 4 years. Yeah, we can have the discussion again. And that's my proposal.
I would support that.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have a seconder?
Use the second.
Okay, we've got Spencer the seconder, show of hands.
We want to keep you.
And there is one other person missing too that I don't know. I'm so new, I don't know if he'd be interested, but it's Matt Parker.
Matt's here,
Oh, I'm
actually.
here. Oh, shoot. I'm actually an alternate now.
Oh, okay.
And Sean Gauss now is representing
Okay. Okay.
Squamish Trust Society.
Okay. So that's
Okay.
something you want to do, or are you not interested in it? You're
We now have
I think I tried for
the
years.
position of deputy chair available.
Deputy Chair West.
Wes?
As deputy?
Does that, it's because the email was specifically to chair, can we put him as deputy chair?
I'm going to say yes because
Oh, but we're also voting to keep as existing, and he is deputy chair right now.
We're keeping it as is.
Okay, okay.
Is he
deputy chair? He is, yeah.
Votes for as is.
Okay, okay. Resolved.
And we're all happy with it.
I'm flattered, guys.
We need another gavel.
Right at the end, I'm gonna hit it like a hit.
I want to see it.
Okay, so we don't have any status of recommendations to council. We have no referrals from council. No correspondence. So let's start with roundtable discussion. Eric, I'll let that start with you.
Sure, and I'll try to be very brief. We may have, I believe that Andy Dawson has circulated a report on the pipeline leak to all members of the committee. Just an update on that, or rather...
We didn't get that.
Oh, excuse me. Well, the district has examined the water leak in the vicinity of Neaton Cool and determined through a test of the water that it is not municipal water and that it likely comes from a spring nearby. Now, I grew up in the neighborhood and I know about that spring and that creek that we buried when the development occurred there. So what I'm going to suggest is that this can continue to be monitored because there may be a solution through rerouting the water or at least exploring the source of the water because in my view it is a safety risk during winter months.
Actually, we are looking at it, and we do have a mini excavator that we're going to be using for the next few weeks coming up, and that's going to be part of the job to try to reroute that water.
Very good. I'd like to be on hand, Andy, because I actually do recall with pretty good detail about how that water course went, and I'll be happy to advise on that. And I'm pleased that the district staff is following through on this. As Elaine and I, another neighbor of the area, we do think it is a safety risk.
I'll email you when we start.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a second item. Last time there's a note in the minutes regarding we didn't have the Community Wildlife Protection Plan link online. Asia has followed through on that, and so there is a link to that report, and I'm going to suggest that we continue to watch that program. There's a grant application that's been submitted, and so I suggest there may be opportunity for the Smoke Plus Park Advisory Committee to offer or suggest ways that it can participate in projects on upcoming use of machinery for chipping and that sort of thing. So it's a program to keep an eye on.
That's a wild
Part of the Community Wildlife Protection Plan.
wildfire or wildlife?
Wildfire. Did I say wildlife? I did that last time too. So as Fire Chief Stoner mentioned, there are a number of priority areas within the district for attention with respect to wildfire mitigation and beyond the Smoke Bluffs Park. But we'll continue to monitor that and see where we can take advantage of it. Finally, there is a reference in the minutes to contacting a representative of the Kingswood development, Ron Bejoke. And I don't see, staff may be more familiar with updates as to the status of their project and their work, but let's keep that in mind and for future, but it doesn't seem to be an urgent thing at this time. It's more to make them aware of the networks that are there that should be brought to their attention, and the potential user pathways into the park through and from
We
their
can
development.
arrange to have them show us the proposed trail networks.
And in connection with that, there's also in reference in the minutes to the location, the route options for a pedestrian bridge. And that does tie quite closely to the Kingswood project. So these are things that may not be urgent, but we'll keep in mind for future.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Did you have questions?
I was just thinking about the community wildlife plan, I mean, I'm just kidding. the wildfire plan. I noticed that after some of the winter storms, there's a bunch of trees that have fallen on that hydro line that goes up to the top. That is now, I guess when hydro came in and completed their work, it's on the ground now. Is that on the table by fire to clear that out? Because that, as it is actually a good natural fire break if we were to have a wildfire. And I think some of you haven't met me yet. I was a professional forest firefighter for a number of years with BC Forest Service, and I'm currently a professional firefighter in West Vancouver. So it's a topic that is near and dear to me. And it's just something I've noticed, so.
I think that there's, with the windstorms through these past winter months, the district staff have been very busy on this topic throughout the district. And I'll defer to them for any comment on that. But it's been an unusual year for looking at these situations.
Sure. Okay.
We actually do have a wood chipper, and we are doing that right now, but that's not one of the areas that we will be attending this year.
Sure.
So a lot of the areas we're up in Brackendale area, we're in that area, over Brennan Park, Loggers Lane, I mean, basic Corridor Trail, those kind of sections that we're kind of looking after. There's a bunch of work that was done on the dike too as well, so, but we do have to return the chipper by next week.
It's long term.
Yeah.
It is a great
We are-
natural fire break.
Yeah, we picked areas that we thought were the most prevalent.
For sure.
And that's what we're looking at.
In reality, it's pretty, in half a day, there was a fire.
Yeah.
Quick thing.
So in my observation is healthy discussion tonight, and just from a little bit of a distance and being involved with other integrated management plans the district is involved in, I think you're really doing very well. And I think that we should keep this in mind, or that you need to continue to work productively and harness yourself. You're going to add a member potentially, that is a proposal. Let's not make it unwieldy, but also recognize that you really, in fact, are doing well. And compared to other organizations, other management plans, you'd be horrified at the interests that are overlooked and the conflicts that take place, or the discussions that don't happen that should happen. You'd be quite horrified. So let's just keep the energy harnessed productively, and I'm sure that we can do that.
Thank you. Okay, Spencer, we have
No, I'm
5
done.
minutes, so
I've-
everybody's got to be.
I've said my piece.
Mike?
Okay, thank you. I'll second Eric what you said too. After the first meeting, I was a little bit scared. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I part of? Tonight, I feel different. I feel that this is Squamish that I love. Everyone really came together tonight at this meeting, and I really valued the open discussion. And thank you. And I'm proud to be part of this group for that reason. Along those lines, last meeting, I think you talked about the multi-use trail policy.
Yes.
And I think we chatted after the meeting that I'd like to work with you on that. I would like to work with you on that, and maybe there's other members, again, speaking of collaboration, that could all kind of be a part of that as well. So I just want to bring that up.
Yeah. Why don't we look at that, because we do have another meeting coming up soon. Why don't we look at getting that off the, like, not putting out these fires and getting that going next time.
Cool.
But I'm still on board. Anybody else? Elaine?
I will have Asia as the new staff rep follow up on this, but our environmental staff reached out, and I believe that BC Hydro might be coming through this year.
Okay.
So I'll let Asia sort of dig in a bit more.
Destruction commence. Yeah.
And I believe Wes was going to reach out to Hydro too, so I'll connect with him on that.
Okay.
And we've been in touch with our communication staff to ensure that the community knows of any plans.
Will this affect our plantings that we've already put in there?
No, I think it's probably more of an issue at Penny Lane area.
Okay.
I think that other area is doing well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a question about, are we going to have a May meeting? I'm just not sure how we
Yes.
establish the dates. Okay.
Yeah, we do still, this is like an emergency meeting, so we'll still have our first week of May meeting.
So we do have, I circulated the map that Helen had revised, and maybe we should cover that at the May meeting.
I think that's a great idea, and also we can review the charts that you updated. Thank you for
If
doing that.
anybody has any early feedback and it's kind of warranted, then we can also get Helen to maybe do a second round of updates before we kind of get into like the finalization stage of the
Great,
meeting.
yeah. Let's all send feedback by email, is okay? Okay. Great, thank you.
I didn't have a chance. It was very tight window of time between Tuesday and Thursday for me to
Yeah.
provide additional comment to that.
Yeah, and
so I
maybe we
haven't.
look at making the May meeting in a few weeks, just so it give us all a break.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Andy? Sue, did you have anything? Okay. Gary?
Meeting issue, but I'll be very quick. FMCBC have expressed interest again about effecting the transfer subject to there being a park dedication and restrictive covenant. So if the committee wanted to, if someone wanted to put forward a motion to this effect that staff bring forward a process and timeline for a park dedication bylaw, if someone wants to move and second that, we are likely to be moving forward on that process in the next.
Does one of us need to read it?
Next meeting? Next meeting, okay? Would next meeting be okay to make a motion?
We'll be starting the work as soon as possible.
Yeah, we should do it tonight.
I have.
Well, you can do it.
Basis. I'll just have to
What do you
abstain
think?
because
It's very important, yeah.
That's fine to me, it's great news.
That's kind of been the purpose of the park for the since its inception, that we can actually get it to be a dedicated park and bring in the FMBC lands. That's kind of been like our main purpose since inception. Isn't this like why we exist?
For me, it partly depends on the requirements of the covenant.
Okay.
So
as it were,
I'm not against it. I love the idea, of course.
Yeah.
I remember when it was bought to protect it.
Can we get it protect and join the land and then protect them? That would be,
I guess,
the biggest win we've had in this committee forever.
Are you
Yeah.
suggesting we open the meeting again and vote on it right now?
It's still open, we're still open.
Still open.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to pass it over, Eric?
You need someone to propose that? To make this actually a park and bring the lands together? We'll start the process to do that.
it's an additional impetus to us.
Yeah, I will absolutely stick money down up on that one. That's the point.
Okay, so was the motion on here, Gary?
Yes.
Next motion, please.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I
Thank
should
you.
have.
No, that's okay. Okay, so I propose a motion that staff bring forward a process and timeline for a park dedication bylaw.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah, I can support that.
Let's make it a park for once.
Show of hands, please. Yep, great. Oh, that's awesome. That's a really good note. Elaine.
So I believe that a motion was made to do a walkthrough on phase one. Was the date set, or is there some?
It wasn't, so I think we have to reach out to the user groups.
You were going to work on that with Roland
Yes.
and then post something to the other user groups and the committee.
Mhm.
And I will GPS that group.
Okay, great.
And I will email, flag it, or what do you prefer?
I can flag it too.
Yeah.
Actually,
Okay.
you could GPS it and send the track out.
Send it to
Then
everyone.
Then I could pre-walk it.
For feedback, and then if people like it, then I can go flag it. It's like 2 minutes
Okay.
away from my house, I can seriously get there so fast. So I can go multiple trips, so GPS, send it to everyone, so I'll send it to you. I don't know if I have everyone's email.
Send it to the district.
Okay.
In the district and board. Okay. Yeah, so let's finish roundtable and then I'm gonna just throw down the action items and we'll finish. Okay, anyone? Sean?
My only comment is I'm really pleased to hear some discussion about wildfire. It's long been a concern of mine in the committee, so great to hear there's not only the committee, but the district is implementing that strategy as well.
Eric?
I have a little feedback on the map that got sent out last week, and I'll chat with you after.
Right.
As one of the last ones standing here, I'm delighted to hear about the Federation Lands movement. That's great news. And so we've been trying to get that going for years. It just seems to disappear into the woodwork every year.
Until right now.
That's right. It's a win for one.
Well, you're the chair.
Karen did all the work, you wrote the motion. Okay, so I'm not gonna bring anything else up in roundtable other than the action points that I've messily starred here. Action to schedule a walkthrough myself with Roland. So we need to schedule this walkthrough is for an overall committee walkthrough. So we need to decide on a date for that. Let's do that now. And then, or why don't I send out a doodle poll?
Yes.
And then we'll set that up, and that'll be for the proposed new trail, markings, GPSing, discussing signage, all the way for phase 1 to Grand Dug.
And that is for the existing trail?
Yes.
We're doing this for both, we're not
Yes.
eliminating, this is still like,
We walk
in
both
either
lines.
or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, both,
Absolutely,
yeah.
this can't be like, hey, we're just doing this, like, we need to get all the data.
Christy, when you have a date confirmed, I can assist with spreading that
Oh, great, yeah,
to
with
the other
the user
users
groups.
who are in attendance.
That's perfect,
Sure.
yeah.
And if you go out with Roland, I'd be happy to join. if
Great,
I'm,
yeah.
like-
We're all going out.
Oh, that's, okay.
Oh, this is a different one. This is a different one. Because I'm going to work with Roland
Oh,
on
for the
looking at
signage?
phase 2.
Phase 2 or
The
something?
phase 2 reclamation. Or we're gonna organize the reclamation for phase 2.
Should trials be part of that?
Would you like to be?
Yes. Their trails are.
Okay, yeah, anybody can. Well, I'll submit it. We'll do a doodle poll for that one too. Everybody's welcome. I just love making doodle polls.
I didn't really even know.
Can you even walk? Pardon? You can walk up the trail?
I'm gonna go try it on Saturday.
We can wheel you up there. Okay, so.
I'm not sure my doctor's gonna approve, but I'm probably gonna bring my trials bike.
Okay, so the next action item we have here is Asia's going to come up with some sort of consultation process checklist or
Which
document.
most already exist, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a recap.
Yeah, and we can look at that at the next meeting. And then the last action item is to organize a meeting to evaluate reclamation of the phase 2 beyond Grand Dug with whoever would like to come. So, I'll be in charge of doing that with Roland.
Okay, so that was the one that you said phase 2 earlier?
Did
But
I?
you were actually
I meant
talking about phase 1.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm tired.
So
a little shaky.
So that it's clear to me, everybody else might be clear, but you and Roland are going to work towards establishing a time when everybody who can will go out on a walkthrough of the built phase 1 line
No.
and the proposed alternative to the phase 1 line.
So Roland, to put Roland aside, he'll be attending that. But we as a committee are going to do that walkthrough for phase 1. We are going to do both trails.
With other user groups.
With other user groups.
Yes.
The district's gonna give us the user groups and the contacts for all that, so it's gonna be like a big everybody that was at this meeting is probably gonna be there.
Yeah.
And we'll walk through, we'll do both the as-built trail, the proposed trail, we'll look at signage and safety. And then, separate to that, the phase 2 reclamation, will include buy-in from the committee. We can all go for a walkthrough. I'll set that up with Roland. And then Roland and I will coordinate volunteers to do that work.
Okay.
Happy?
And Spencer, does trials want to be part of
Yes.
that? Because that feedback on how the reclamation goes, because I know some of your trails and they're not yours, but some trails are.
Yeah, everybody will have an
Yeah,
opportunity.
I'll be in contact with Chrissy and with Roland.
Great. So on that note, I just want to thank everyone, and I especially, I know I said this a few times, but I want to thank this committee because it's not easy having all this lashback and like when something happens that you were trying to do your best at and you were trying to make an improvement. So I want to thank you guys all for being diplomatic and engaging in the consultation process and figuring this out as a group. And for keeping me as chair.
Well, as long as we can.
If council passes the
Yeah,
motion.
yes.
So I think we our final item here is to terminate the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.